Alrighty, welcome back everybody to our latest Hurricane Milton update stream in terms of what's going to be happening over the next few days. This will be a in-depth forecast in terms of the impacts, when this will be making landfall, exactly what's going to be happening over the next few days, and why I think this will make a run at becoming a Category 5 hurricane as we go into Tuesday. So again, we're going to break down everything that you need to know in this live stream, and we're going to just jump right into it, I guess. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below, and as well as like the stream. Click the bell icon down below as well, because we will be doing several different live updates over the next few days, so make sure you're subscribed, and again, click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. All right, let's jump right into what's happening right now with Hurricane Milton. This has obviously rapidly become something that is a concern. This was 3 days ago, not looking that concerning, but things have obviously changed, and for those that don't know, this is a very rare situation. We don't usually have tropical storms or hurricanes, at least in October, that form down here in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico and move to the east. That is just something that doesn't happen very often, and the biggest reason why we're going to be seeing that is because the jet stream aloft is way back up to the north. We also have a jet streak back down here in the southeast United States, which is essentially in the upper levels a really hot pocket essentially of high winds, and that is why this is going to be moving more to the east as it moves towards Florida. Most of the time you'd see this spinning around a high pressure system moving towards like Louisiana, for example, but no, this is a very rare situation. We do not see hurricanes like this hardly ever, and I'll show you later in the video or live stream here that there are, situations in the past that we've had hurricanes form over here, but they're not very typical. It's a very rare sort of situation that we're dealing with. This originated back over in the Pacific Ocean and actually moved over Mexico. So that's where this has actually come from. Again, 3 to 4 days ago, it didn't look like it would be much of a concern, but it obviously has. This is going to be something that is going to be one of the biggest hurricanes that we have seen all year long. More than likely going to make a run at least at a Category 4 hurricane, but if not a Category 5 hurricane. Over the next 24 hours, this will continue to intensify. It is going to become a major hurricane, more than likely tomorrow afternoon, and then as we go into tomorrow evening and eventually into Tuesday morning, this will eventually make a run at Category 4 status. There is a chance somewhere just north of the Yucatan Peninsula that this does become a Category 5 hurricane. It's not a guarantee, but at this rate, it is a very small hurricane, and small hurricanes have a notorious for basically really strengthening very quickly. So this particular hurricane could do that and could become a Category 5 hurricane. But the good news about this is that it is going to eventually weaken as it gets closer to Florida. The bad news, the weakening is not going to be enough to basically keep the worst of the impacts from Florida. We are still going to be talking about life-threatening storm surge, hurricane force winds, prolific rainfall, just a bunch of different things are going to be impacting Florida. So we need to be very vigilant, obviously, and we're going to talk all about those impacts in just a moment. There's already a spread of moisture across Florida that has been bringing showers and thunderstorms to Florida throughout the day today. Again, this rain is just going to add on over the next few days, and eventually when this hurricane makes landfall, we're going to even see more rain pile up on top of the rain that we're seeing right now. So it's really just an unfortunate situation right now for Florida when it comes to also the amount of rain that we are going to see out of Milton. The current thinking is that this will make landfall in Florida as a Category 3 hurricane with maximum wind gusts near 150 miles per hour, somewhere between the Big Bend of Florida all the way back over just south of Cape Coral. So we could see landfall anywhere in this area. So again, if you're anywhere along the coastline, you need to be ready for the worst of the potential impacts that we could see. That includes the potential for substantial storm surge, hurricane force winds, and again, prolific rainfall that will lead to the potential for significant flooding. All right, let's go ahead and jump into a couple of our, basically we're gonna go through the forecast now. That was just kind of the, I would say, beginning of what we're gonna be talking about. This could last 20 minutes, by the way. We might be talking about just the forecast aspects for the next 20 minutes, so buckle up. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with this. This is what Hurricane Milton looks like right now. Biggest thing that you'll notice is that there is a core that is formed here in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Convection is just spinning around this right now, and we are starting to see that core consolidate, and once that happens, we are expecting this to continue to rapidly intensify as it moves in the direction of the Yucatan Peninsula. This is another view of that core as well. Just kind of notice that red area, also that black area there. All this is essentially just indicating our core has been organizing, developing, and we are starting to see this really start to become a more matured hurricane, which will eventually become a Category 2 later tonight and a Category 3 by tomorrow. All right. The latest graphic from Tropical Tidbits, I think, is broken. Give me 1 second to pull up a new one. Might be broken. Yes, it is. Okay. All right. I'm going to show you the latest spaghetti chart. And basically what this shows you is a bunch of different computer models all embedded into one graphic. So this is, again, just a bunch of different models, bunch of different hurricane models and other models that are usually pretty good with at least the track of a particular hurricane like this one. Right now, the consensus is that most of these models have this making landfall somewhere between the north side of Tampa, which would be catastrophic for Tampa, by the way, all the way as far south as Cape Coral. So that's the range that we're dealing with right now in terms of where this hurricane could make landfall in Florida. The consensus right now, though, is that it's kind of smack dab in the middle of that, going right into the area just south of Tampa Bay. So just north of Cape Coral, just south of Tampa Bay is where we are more than likely going to see this make landfall. But there is still a large range. There is still a lot of uncertainty exactly where this will make landfall, and there's a lot of reasons why, and we'll be talking about those in a moment. But currently, the thinking is that this will be making landfall within about 50 miles or so of Tampa Bay, which will bring the potential for some very significant storm surge. This is the latest intensity guidance forecast, and essentially what this chart shows you is that, again, a bunch of different computer models embedded into one graphic that will show you the potential intensity of what this hurricane could become. So the first thing that we're going to talk about here is the magnitude of what this could get to. It could get to a Category 5 hurricane. That is not impossible at this point. I do think that this will at least be a Category 4, but this could make a run at a Category 5 as we go into Monday night into Tuesday morning. Now, keep in mind, I said Monday night into Tuesday morning. I'm not saying that this can be a Category 5 in Florida. I'm saying that tomorrow night into Tuesday morning, this could be a Category 5. What does that mean? Well, essentially, we could see a pretty historic hurricane here in the southern Gulf of Mexico, but eventually, as it gets closer to Florida, this is what we're looking at in terms of the landfall intensity. So somewhere between anywhere from like a Category 2 all the way up to a high-end Category 4 hurricane would all be possible scenarios in Florida. The biggest thing that we need to watch for Florida is that there's going to be a lot of vertical wind shear. There's also going to be dry air, and all that stuff kind of filters in to a hurricane and is able to weaken it in many cases. This is a much smaller hurricane compared to something like Ian or even Helene. Both of those hurricanes were much larger in nature. So smaller hurricanes have the ability to rapidly intensify. They can also rapidly weaken. It is a very typical thing. So we could see this do either or, and we also could see this just gradually weaken as it approaches Florida. It's going to depend on how strong that shear is and also how much dry air there is as well. And we'll go into the hurricane graphics in just a moment. By the way, we'll be answering questions during the stream, so if you have any questions, we'll be getting to those after I'm done talking about the forecast, which, again, is probably still about 15 minutes away. So if you have questions, save them. We'll be talking about those in a few minutes. Let's go over to this. This will be a little bit easier to see. There we go. All right. By the way, this is live. The time will not be on your screen right now, but this is live, just FYI. I'm just taking it off so you can see the graphic a little bit better here. All right, so this is the Tropical Tidbits latest run on the HAFS-B model. This is a hurricane model. These are built specifically for hurricanes. And so over the next 24 hours, going into Monday morning, this is expected to continue to intensify into a stronger hurricane, probably Category 2, if not Category 3 by late tomorrow morning. This will be making quite a close pass to the Yucatan Peninsula as we go into tomorrow. The HAFS-B model run has this actually kind of flirting between the Yucatan Peninsula and this little set of islands that are just to the north of the Yucatan. I'm not sure what these are called. I actually looked at this last night. There's like one building, I think, on this entire island area here north of the Yucatan. But nonetheless, basically this hurricane is likely to split between the two. And the good news is that the worst of the wind should just stay north of the Yucatan, but we could see some impacts right along the coastline. Notice how intense this is. Category 4 intensity throughout the day Tuesday, and even as we go into Wednesday, this still remains at a Category 4 intensity. Once we get closer to lunchtime on Wednesday, this particular model continues to keep it pretty intense. Notice at the very top right of your screen, that is Florida. So this is still well to the west of Florida as a Category 4 hurricane as we go closer to lunchtime on Wednesday. As we get closer to dinner time, this is still offshore according to this model. There is some discrepancy right now in terms of when this will make landfall. It's either going to be sometime Wednesday afternoon or evening. It could make landfall as late as Thursday morning, which would be very unfavorable because there might be a lot of people sleeping overnight, Wednesday night to Thursday morning that are in Florida. So hopefully this makes landfall sometime during the daylight hours. I think a lot more people are aware when weather events are happening during the day compared to night. So hopefully this does not slow down as it is currently showing. But in this this case, if it does make landfall like late Wednesday night into Thursday morning, this particular model does indicate that it will begin to weaken just to the west of Tampa. Here's another concerning trend. Notice about 24 hours before this is a very compact and confined hurricane. It is very small. This is what's concerning about this. It is going to become a lot larger of a wind field. This is the wind field here. This wind field is going to grow substantially in size, and this is where we could see tropical storm force winds. It grows immensely, and that will also increase the storm surge along the west coast of Florida, and it's also going to increase the wind speeds inland across Florida. That essentially means worse storm surge for some areas, and power outages will be more likely in a pretty large, vast majority of the Florida peninsula out of this particular hurricane. This is by the time it makes landfall. Again, this model showing around 8 a.m. or so on Thursday making landfall. A lot of models still have this making landfall sometime during the evening hours on Wednesday. So I don't completely buy this making landfall on Thursday. However, it is still a possibility. This model has it making landfall at about 958 millibars in terms of wind and intensity. That is around a high-end Cat 2 or low-end Cat 3 hurricane upon landfall in Florida. No matter what the intensity is, though, this is going to broaden out into a much larger hurricane, which means that the impacts are going to be felt across a larger chunk of the state. This also keeps it just to the north of Tampa, and if that happens, we would be talking about catastrophic storm surge in the Tampa Bay area. Perhaps 10 to 15 feet of storm surge would be possible. Now, granted, those are currently numbers that are still uncertain because we don't yet have a storm surge forecast from the National Hurricane Center, and we're still not positive that this is going to make landfall just north of Tampa. Again, there is still a relatively large spread. This could make landfall from the Big Bend all the way as far south as like Cape Coral, even just south of there. But if this for whatever reason does decide to make landfall just north of Tampa Bay, we would be talking about catastrophic storm surge in Tampa, which again is something that we have never really seen in our lifetime in terms of a hurricane making landfall literally within like 20 or 30 miles of Tampa. And I'll show you the historical data, by the way, to back that up. In terms of major hurricanes, at least, we've never had a major hurricane do that. Then as we go throughout the day, or either, again, this could be overnight Wednesday night to Thursday morning, or it could be during the day Thursday. It's still uncertain, but sometime between those two time frames, this will move over central Florida, probably right up I-4, and then eventually it'll exit into the Atlantic Ocean. Another concern is that we are going to have a northerly wind that is going to intensify either Thursday or early Friday, and that'll bring the potential for storm surge into areas like Daytona Beach, Jacksonville, Palm Bay. Basically, that entire stretch there could see some storm surge on the backside of whatever's left with this hurricane. Another concerning trend is, or not really, I would say not really a concerning trend, but something that's interesting is that this is actually going to become extra tropical as we go into Friday. It's just going to become a broad low pressure center. And so this is something that we do see sometimes with tropical systems. This particular system will eventually become extra tropical as we go into Friday. Now, this is another hurricane model. I'm not going to spend as much time on this one, but just another scenario for you. This is the HMON model, another hurricane model. Again, these are built specifically for hurricanes. This model has it getting down to around 927 millibars, 923, as we go into Tuesday afternoon and evening, and eventually actually intensifies just a little bit more as we go into Wednesday morning. Again, just keep in mind, look at the size of the wind field. It is so compact and confined on Tuesday. It just blows up as we go into Wednesday. It becomes this broad area of wind as we go into Wednesday, which is not something that you want to see. You don't want to see this large wind field because that's going to increase the impacts for a lot of people. Initially, it was thought that this might be a smaller hurricane upon landfall in Florida, but now we're talking about the potential for a much larger wind field at least, which would lead to, again, more widespread power outages, especially along the west coast of Florida. This is by the time it makes landfall. The HMON model has this weakening rapidly before landfall. This is the one model that has been kind of showing that at least over the last couple of runs, where it just weakens very, very quickly before landfall to like a category 1 hurricane. Even if this happens, we would still be talking about major impacts, especially for the coastal regions. The storm surge is still going to be a major problem, no matter if it does, weaken rapidly or weakens gradually. It's still going to be a major to potentially catastrophic problem, and the winds would still be a massive problem as well. And then again, as we go into Friday, it does eventually become extra tropical. All right, let's go into the computer models and kind of give you an idea of rainfall, wind speeds, and all that sort of stuff. This will be much more easy to comprehend in terms of the intensity of what we're expecting out of this hurricane. Let me center this just a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. We can probably zoom in a little bit. Let me, that's the wrong thing. One moment. Let me just zoom in so you guys have a easier view of this. Okay, that should be good. It's good enough. We'll just roll with it. It's not, you know, it's not professional like our videos, but it's good enough. All right, so this is what we're looking at for the timing in terms of rain. Again, we're going to continue to see on and off showers and thunderstorms for the next few days across the Florida Peninsula. The European model right now does have this making landfall Wednesday night around 11 o'clock or so, maybe just after that, near Tampa Bay and Sarasota. So this particular model, the European, which is a deterministic model, has it making landfall right around midnight or so, or 11 p.m. on Wednesday, as a category 2-ish hurricane, maybe even a low-end category 3. Here's the biggest thing. We're going to be talking about a ton of rain out of this, especially on the northern side of this hurricane, which will lead to the potential for some substantial flooding. We could be talking about 12 to 18 inches of rain in some isolated locations as we go into Wednesday. So that's, and as well as into Thursday. So we have to watch that potential very closely. But notice how the low pressure center literally just goes up I-4. So again, essentially, this is going to be impacting almost all of Central Florida and as well as the entire west coast of Florida. One thing I'll point out as well is if this does make landfall here near Tampa, we are probably going to see very little rainfall, at least just south here of Sarasota. So much less rainfall in nature, but storm surge expected to still be a major issue for those areas, as we will be getting offshore flow, which will push a lot of that water towards the bays, like the one near Cape Coral, and also obviously Tampa Bay would be dealing with the more substantial storm surge. Now, in terms of total rainfall accumulation, this is an estimate. It is a estimate from the European model. It currently shows a widespread area across Florida picking up anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of rain, but it does have some locations between Jacksonville and Tampa Bay picking up upwards of a foot, and even in some cases over a foot of rainfall. That should remain a bit more isolated, but it is still going to be a threat. So make sure if you're in a an area that's prone to flooding that you're staying vigilant with this particular threat. But I do think the most substantial rain is going to be on the north side of this hurricane. So if it does indeed make landfall in Tampa Bay, it'll more than likely impact areas along and just north of I-4. Another thing I want to point out is if it makes landfall further south like Cape Coral, it would be more of a rain threat for areas just between Daytona Beach and Cape Coral. So again, it's going to vary on where this makes landfall, but that's where we're expecting the more significant rainfall accumulation. This is what the current forecast from the Weather Prediction Center in terms of rainfall expected out of this, at least the estimated forecast. They're a little bit conservative, I'd say, for right now in terms of rainfall accumulation, but nonetheless, I think this is still a pretty good forecast. They are showing that there is going to be a potential between Tampa Bay, Daytona Beach, and just north of Orlando to see somewhere between 8 to 12 inches of rain. Back up near Jacksonville right now, they're kind of on the cusp of like 3 to 6. It could be higher or lower just depending on where the eye exactly goes, but again, be prepared for worst case scenario. And then back over on the west coast of Florida, it's going to vary substantially, but most areas at least going to pick up 3 to 6 inches of rainfall. For the time being, there is currently a moderate risk for excessive rainfall across areas near Orlando, Tampa Bay, and just south of Jacksonville. We also have one back over in Miami, but again, if you remember from the Appalachian Mountain situation, this is a different situation because they're on mountains. Obviously, Florida is flat, but there was a high risk of excessive rainfall in those areas. So comparing and contrasting here, it's again two different situations, but a moderate risk for excessive rainfall is still very significant, and we are expecting some scattered flooding in those areas, potentially even numerous at times. All right, the next impact that we're going to talk about is wind, and then we'll be talking more about the storm surge, and then after that, we're going to talk about some of the historical stuff and the latest forecast from the National Hurricane Center. So we got a few more things, and then we'll start getting into some questions. But to begin with, this is the latest wind forecast, at least from the European model. I do agree with the numbers on here, so that's why I'm showing it. But notice how we are looking at the potential for hurricane force winds approaching Tampa Bay and Sarasota as we go into overnight Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. Notice how the wind field isn't super large. At least it's not impacting really the East Coast substantially as we go into the initial landfall of this hurricane. But we are still talking about wind gusts around tropical storm force level. And then as this makes landfall, the wind field is expected to broaden substantially. So we could be talking about a lot of different areas, anywhere from 50 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts, even inland. And then again, right along the coastline is where some of the worst impacts would be felt out of this particular hurricane. And then this is the GFS model. I'll show you guys the GFS just really quickly. But I'm going to show you this first. The GFS has this making landfall further north of Tampa as we go into Thursday morning. So this is a bit of an outlier, but it has it a bit further north of Tampa, which again would be pretty significant still for Tampa Bay when it comes to storm surge. Now, if it makes landfall that far to the north, this is what our wind field would look like as we go into Thursday morning or whenever this makes landfall. And again, notice the worst of the wind, pretty confined still, but again, anywhere from Orlando to Gainesville to Tampa. And then eventually as this moves inland, it would start to impact areas like Daytona Beach, just south of Jacksonville and off to the north of Tampa Bay. All right. This is the latest in terms of storm surge from the Coastal Emergency Risk Assessment website. And it might take a second to load because I just refreshed it, but we'll give it a second to load here. So this is what we're looking in terms of the most significant storm surge. This is based on if this does make landfall right on this line. So if it makes landfall right around Sarasota, we'd be talking about the worst storm surge and the most catastrophic storm surge to be just south here of Sarasota, between there and Cape Coral. But I want to remind you, if you are anywhere in this cone of uncertainty, you need to be preparing as if you are going to have direct landfall, because if it does happen in your area and you are caught on the southern side of the eye, that is where the worst and the most catastrophic storm surge is going to happen. So again, if the eye ends up being up near Spring Hill, for example, the worst of the storm surge would be going into Tampa. It's a very uncertain situation still, but we do have a very, at least I have a good feeling that this is going to be making landfall somewhere between Spring Hill and Fort Myers. I don't think we're going to have it much further north or south than those 2 points, but again, prepare as if it's going to make landfall anywhere in this cone of uncertainty. I can't stress that enough. There are too many people that have been posting this graphic and they have a line right down the middle and they're showing that this is definitely going to make landfall in Tampa. That's not necessarily true. It's a bit of a higher likelihood, I would say, than any other point on the graphic, but it could still change directions and it could still change where it makes landfall. So do not get caught up in the middle of the cone. This cone of uncertainty is outlined to show you where we could see landfall. That means if it makes landfall all the way up here, we would actually see the worst impacts all the way back over in far northern Florida and southern Georgia. So just keep that in mind. But this is the latest National Hurricane Center forecast. This is their experimental cone. Again, this is still a Category 1 hurricane, maximum sustained winds at 85 miles per hour. It is expected to become a major hurricane tomorrow morning or afternoon, and then it'll eventually intensify to a Category 4 hurricane, perhaps even near Cat 5 levels as we go into Tuesday afternoon, just to the north of the Yucatan Peninsula. Wind shear and dry air will start to become a problem here near Tampa, or just west of Florida, I should say, as we go into early Wednesday, and that should eventually start to weaken it a little bit, but it'll broaden the hurricane as we've been talking about. And when that happens, we're going to be talking about a larger wind field, and we'll also be talking about some more storm surge that'll be more elongated in terms of the spatial area. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, we're going to talk about some other things that are still obviously related to this, but I want to kind of talk about a few notes here. This is a very powerful message from I believe this is the National Hurricane Center, or this is a local office. Let me double check and see. This is from, I believe, the National Hurricane Center, but if not, it is at least some sort of local message. But this is what they have said in their own wording. The intensity forecast appears straightforward at first, with rapid intensification likely while the small hurricane remains within light shear and over very deep warm waters. That's right now. Intensity guidance about as bullish as I've seen in this part of the basin, with almost everything showing a peak intensity of a Category 4 or 5 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico here over the next day or two. The National Hurricane Center forecast has raised from the previous one and lies near the intensity consensus model and still could be too low. So again, we could see a Category 5 hurricane sometime Tuesday in the Gulf of Mexico. It's not being ruled out by any means. Later on, vertical wind shear is expected to increase as Milton approaches Florida, which would promote weakening. But again, the regional hurricane models are showing that the system will grow in size even if it weakens, which means that we are basically going to be expecting a large hurricane at landfall in Florida. I don't think it'll be as large as what we had with Helene, but it will definitely get close to that, I think. And then there is an increase in confidence that a powerful hurricane with life-threatening hazards will be affecting portions of Florida, the West Coast, around the middle this week, and then residents again should be preparing and listening to local officials. This is the historical data in terms of hurricanes that have made landfall in Florida. And again, this is a very rare situation. This is major hurricanes only, so category 3 through 5 hurricanes. We've never had a hurricane, at least in the last, I think the last one we had make landfall in Tampa was like 100 years ago. We haven't had a hurricane, though, major hurricane make landfall in Tampa in forever. It has been a long time. This chart that I'm showing you, or this map, is hurricanes that have made landfall in Florida between 1960 till now. So that is a long time. And notice how empty this graph is between Tampa Bay and back up near Cedar Key, Florida. It is quite remarkable that Tampa has been spared a lot when it comes to hurricanes. Hopefully this thing weakens and is not a major hurricane upon landfall. But if this does end up making landfall in Tampa, it will be our first one in a long time. The last one was, I think, 1921 is what I'm seeing in chat. That sounds about right. It was, again, about 100 years ago, the last time we had a major hurricane make landfall in Tampa. So if this does make landfall as a major hurricane in Tampa, this would be, again, just remarkably unbelievable, because we've just never seen that in our lifetime, or at least most of our lifetimes. So, again, this is a pretty serious situation. If this does end up making landfall around or just north of Tampa, we are going to be talking about catastrophic storm surge in Tampa. And I'm not trying to say that to scare you. I'm just saying that as, you know, it's basically bound to happen, especially if we have a category 2 or 3 hurricane. I mean, no doubt, I think that we're going to be seeing catastrophic storm surge if the landfall just stays north or around Tampa. But if for some reason, which is still a possibility, if for some reason this makes landfall maybe near Northport or Cape Coral, the storm surge would be way less impactful for Tampa Bay, but it would still be a concern for those areas. Also, there is a couple of other things I want to touch on. This is a forecast from the National Weather Service in Jacksonville. This is their high-end scenario for rainfall and then their forecasted scenario. Notice how many areas like Flagler Beach, St. Augustine, all the way back up near St. Simons in Georgia, talking about some pretty significant rainfall in nature. What I want to point out, though, is that the maximum rainfall forecast right now for areas like St. Augustine, Flagler Beach, upwards of 10 to 15 inches of rainfall. So that is something that we also need to keep in mind, is that flooding is going to be a concern out of this hurricane, especially since it's probably going to slow down a little bit as it moves over the state of Florida. So that's another thing that you want to keep in mind. This is also a graphic from Radar Omega that they made for hurricane watches, warnings, tropical storm watches and warnings. You can take a screenshot of this if you'd like, because all of you probably, if you're in Florida, many of you at least, will be under some sort of watch here or warning over the next 48 hours. And so I want to kind of just give you an idea that, you know, this is what we're talking about when it comes to watches and warnings for tropical stuff. So storm surge watches, storm surge warnings, tropical storm watches, warnings, etc. Feel free to take a screenshot if you want of that. I will display that again here pretty soon. And then this is the latest out of Fort Myers Beach, Florida. They are ordering mandatory evacuations in Fort Myers Beach from the last thing I heard. The potential for storm surge over 10 feet will be possible in Fort Myers, or it's least likely as of right now. So they have gone ahead, I think, and issued some evacuation orders there in Fort Myers Beach. So that's the latest in that particular area. Again, there's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about in this stream. That's why we went live a little bit earlier than we usually do for these hurricane forecast streams. And so we're going to be answering questions, and we're also going to be going over the latest information. And again, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We are going to have live updates pretty much every single day on Hurricane Milton, and we'll also be talking a lot about the potential for, again, potentially catastrophic impacts for Florida. Okay. Let me check out Twitter real quick. I think we have a few other graphics I'm going to show you guys. I like this graphic too. This is made by James Pettis. This was from earlier today, but it is a good graphic. This gives you an idea of when we could see rapid intensification, and that's kind of what we're gonna be looking at here over the next 24 hours and over the next 48 hours, even just to the north of the Yucatan Peninsula. Again, the forecasted numbers have gone up. It's not 110 knots anymore. It's actually upwards of 135 knots now. With that said, we are still expecting this to be a Category 4 hurricane, but rapid intensification again would be happening and is already happening, but it will be happening really over the next 24 to 36 hours. So just want to kind of throw that out there for those that were wondering. All right, back over to this screen. By the way, our next National Hurricane Center update will be at 11 o'clock Eastern time. We will probably be live at least until 11 tonight. So we'll be live here for a while. We'll be answering questions, comments, concerns, and we'll be talking about the latest stuff that's happening with Hurricane Milton. Thank you, Michelle, Michaela, Peter, Dibble, Ethan, and Steve for all becoming members. Thank you, Alex, for the super chat. Chance of any tornadoes? That is a good question. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've not looked at the tornado potential that much, but there is at least a marginal threat. I know on Wednesday, or is it Wednesday or Tuesday? It's Tuesday. There is a marginal threat for severe weather on Tuesday in Florida. So this is the latest SPC outlook on tossing trampolines on tacos Tuesday. A low-end risk for maybe some damaging winds and perhaps a tornado or two between Tampa and southern Florida. That is again a marginal threat. So pretty low-end risk, but that's the latest here from the Storm Prediction Center. But Wednesday, Thursday will be the better days, or better shots, I would say, at least at a tornado threat. Let's go ahead and go into the NAM model. I'm going to see where these... Let's check out... Let's go regional here. Check out tornado parameter values here. I don't think the tornado threat, honestly, is going to be substantial when it makes landfall, or even before landfall, but I do think there's going to be a period on Wednesday where we'll be talking about a few tornadoes, probably in central Florida and back through southern Florida. The NAM model doesn't really have anything too crazy here, at least for the significant tornado parameter values, but the main corridor, I think, for Wednesday, if it makes landfall Wednesday night, I would think the greatest threat for tornadoes will be between about Jacksonville, or just south of Jacksonville, and then between there and about Spring Hill, and then south of there. And then our tornado threat, again, is mostly just going to be confined to Florida. So if you're up in Georgia, if you're up in South Carolina, even if this makes landfall further north, we'll be talking about a greater concern for tornadoes in central and southern Florida. So thank you, Sam, Pam, those two rhyme, for becoming members. Thank you, Doug, as well, and KJ for becoming members. Thank you, Lost, for the super chat. Thank you, Uncle, for the super chat. Thank you, Stream Junkie, for the super chat. Am I going to chase this one? I don't think so. So this is the current plan. For those that are new to the channel, I'm in Florida. We'll be live for landfall coverage. We are currently investing over $500 at least into equipment that would be able to let us stay alive at least for 10 to 20 minutes after either a power flash happens or a power outage happens. So we are going to be making that pretty hefty investment for, landfall coverage, because there is a chance I do lose power on landfall. It was a concern with Hurricane Helene, and this hurricane is not any exception. So we're going to be making an investment in terms of basically a unit that'll be able to keep us online at least for 10 to 20 minutes. And we would get something more expensive. The problem is it takes like at least 6 days to ship, and we don't have 6 days. So yeah. Just letting you guys know. Thank you, Uncle, for the super chat. Thank you, Gima, for the super chat. Thank you, NP, also for the super chat. Christian and Zachary for the super chat. Yeah, I don't think this will be a category 4 on landfall. I think this will be a category 3, maybe even a high-end cat 2, but I think this will be a category 3 upon landfall in Florida. Category 4, I would be surprised if it made a landfall that high in Florida, to be honest. I just don't see that happening. Category 4 would be crazy if it made landfall in Florida, but no, in my opinion, it's already a stretch, I would say, for this making landfall any higher than what it's currently forecasted at, because of all that wind shear that we're going to have in place here near the Florida coastline. But with that said, again, this is going to be a larger hurricane. Once it gets closer to landfall, we already kind of showed you that. It's a confined hurricane, and then it becomes much larger in nature. So this is what it looks like here. It's pretty confined, pretty small wind field near the Yucatan Peninsula as a Cat 4 Tuesday morning. And just notice how that wind field, all that green starts to really broaden out here as we go into Wednesday. And so again, this is just going to become it's not going to be a replica of Helene, but it's going to be obviously a larger sized hurricane upon landfall in Florida. So that means power outages will also be something that increases. Hey, Pettis, are you making a power outage map for this? By the way, just letting you guys know, there's 20,000 of you and 1 of me. So I can't answer every question, but I will try my best to answer as many questions as possible in this live stream. And again, we're going to have several live streams over the next few days and videos. So subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. And we are going to make sure that we hopefully answer as many questions as possible. How should I be, or how worried should I be in Sarasota, Florida? It's a great question. First off, I need to know where Sarasota is. Isn't that Tampa? That's just south of Tampa. Okay, cool. I literally talked about Sarasota like 20 minutes ago, and I already forgot where it was. Just south of Tampa. I think Sarasota is in an area that, I mean, I wouldn't say you should be worried. I just think you should be preparing, right? I think everybody should be preparing right now across the state of Florida. And mainly, again, if you're in the cone of uncertainty, you should be preparing for sure. But you know, if you're near the coastline, especially anywhere from about Cedar Key back just south of Cape Coral, you should be prepared for this hurricane. You should be preparing now. The good thing about this hurricane is that we know more about it in advance compared to Helene. Helene was something that we only had maybe 2.5, 3 days for preparation before landfall. We had about 4 days. I mean, yesterday was a day you could have prepared. Today's a day you can prepare. Tomorrow, the next day. I mean, you got plenty of time to prepare here for Helene. But with that said, or it's not with Helene, sorry, but with Milton. But with that said, you should be preparing if you're in Florida. That's the biggest thing right now. If you are in an area that you are prone to storm surge, that could be over 10 feet or greater, even in some cases, you should potentially at least consider evacuating. One thing I want to mention about evacuations, because a lot of people are going to ask me about this, I'm just going to kind of put my 2 cents into this. You are mostly going to be evacuating from water, as in storm surge. You're going to be mostly evacuating from that or the potential for flooding rainfall. You're not usually going to be evacuating from any other things. You could evacuate for the hurricane force wind field if you're like in a mobile home, for example, but the biggest thing that you're going to be evacuating for is going to be the storm surge. So if you're near the coast, you need to know what evacuation zone that you're in. You should know if you're within a mile or 2 of the coastline. You should have at least some idea of if you're in an evacuation zone and what that one is. If you don't know, you can go to the county government website. But again, you don't have to drive like 5, 6, 7 hours to get away from the storm surge. If you really want, you know, if you're in like Tampa, for example, and you're concerned about storm surge, just go stay a night back over up in Orlando or something at a hotel, as long as they're, you know, operational. Now, again, with that said, Orlando, if the landfall is near Tampa or just south of Tampa, we are still going to be seeing impacts like hurricane force winds. You're not really escaping other impacts, but you're at least escaping the most life-threatening impact out of hurricanes, which is storm surge. That has always been the basically deadliest thing with a hurricane, is storm surge, and it really still rings true. Now, again, Helene was a little bit of an exception. That was more of a flooding threat, but that was more inland. But when we're talking about impacts near landfall, it's typically going to be storm surge that is the deadliest force. So again, make sure if you're right along the coastline that you are evacuating. But again, you don't even have to go that far from Tampa. I mean, you could even go 10 miles, 15 miles inland, like as long as it's away from the coastline and you're not, again, in an area that's prone to storm surge. But thank you, Wolf, for the super chat. Thank you, Karen, for the 5 gifted members. Put some W's in the chat for Karen. Appreciate the generosity. Some of the models have been coming in later. Yeah, I'm actually kind of concerned that the models are coming in later, to be honest, for many reasons. But yeah, I mean, it's still a little bit too early to tell. I mean, the HAFS-B model has us making landfall on Thursday at 9 a.m. or so. And then the HMON model has it making landfall around the same time, if not just a little bit earlier. Let's check out the HWRF model. These are all hurricane models, by the way. These are built for hurricanes. This also has the same sort of landfall. So, yeah, I'm hoping that we don't have a landfall this early in the day. A lot of people, when the impacts really start to ramp up, a lot of people are not going to be awake for this. And so that makes it more dangerous for the wind if you're inland. Because, you know, trees could fall down and debris could go flying. We could have flying trampolines everywhere. You never know. So that is more concerning, in my opinion, if we do end up having a landfall that's sometime during the, you know, the morning Thursday or even before sunrise. But hopefully this makes landfall either Wednesday night or like Thursday afternoon. Sometime at least during daylight, so people are actually more like, you know, at least know what's happening out there, if you know what I mean. Where is this going to exit the state? It'll more than likely exit somewhere between Palm Coast and Port St. Lucie, so somewhere in this area it'll exit offshore. That means wherever the eye ends up, we're going to have a northerly and northeasterly wind, which will put more water into the east coast of Florida after it goes out to sea. So that means storm surge will also be a problem on the east coast, even though this is not making landfall over there. So keep that in mind. If you're over there, there's also a potential for storm surge. And if we go back over to this graphic, right, don't know where it went, there it is. This graphic shows you the potential for water heights, you know, over mean sea level, and once it loads you'll see it a little bit better. But you can kind of see here, again, this is an area that we could see somewhere, anywhere from about South Carolina back through just south of Daytona Beach there near Cape Canaveral. We actually could see rainfall, or not rainfall, sorry, storm surge potential upwards of, you know, 2 to 4 feet or even 3 to 6 feet on the backside of this particular hurricane. So that's gonna be a concern there for the East Coast. Obviously the greatest storm surge would still be on the West Coast where it makes landfall, but nonetheless, we are still gonna be talking about storm surge even on the East Coast. which is pretty unfortunate. And by the way, St. Augustine, I've been here before. Some of you might live there. There is a pretty good chance that that downtown area will be flooded on either, depending on when it makes landfall, it'll probably be flooded the next day. So the day after landfall, or if it makes landfall Thursday morning, it could even be flooded by Thursday afternoon or evening. So that town floods extremely easily. It's kind of crazy. Like, you could have the smallest storm and it'll still flood. Thank you, 2M, for the super chat. The Miami-Dade area will receive hurricane force winds. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but I do think that there's at least a potential for some flooding rainfall there. But I would not say we're going to really be talking about hurricane force winds down there. The hurricane force winds should be mostly confined to this circular area, wherever it makes landfall. Even if this made landfall down near Cape Coral, hurricane force winds still wouldn't really reach Miami. But I could see, I do see tropical storm force winds being a possibility there. That I'll say. But yeah, aside from that, I don't think Miami's going to really get that much of anything when it comes to winds. Worst case scenario at this very moment. Worst case scenario would be this hurricane making landfall. Let me go back to the graphic here. We're going to go back to here. I'm just going to show it on this map. But basically, worst case scenario at this current time would be... I'm not sure if any of the hurricane models currently show it. Let me check. HAFS-A model might show it. We'll go back to the HFS-B. Somebody's asking about worst case scenario. I might as well just kind of give you an idea of what that would look like. This is pretty close to what worst case scenario would look like, is where the hurricane would make landfall somewhere right off to the north of Tampa by within like 20 miles. And if that happens, and this is still a, I mean, with this current model, it shows it as a Cat 3 making landfall here into the Tampa Bay area. If this happens, we would be talking about, again, catastrophic storm surge for Tampa Bay. We could see historic storm surge in Tampa Bay, because the problem with this basically is that the winds are going to be coming out of the southwest, which is, again, offshore flow that brings all that water into the bay, and the bay is not going to really get drained out that quickly. Like, the wind is just going to continue to come out of the west, and eventually it'll come out of the north, but it's just going to kind of go into the bay and sit there. So that's why this is such a concern. There's not really any way for that water just empty out quickly. So, you know, the biggest concern that we have right now is that this could literally just surge a ton of water into the bay, and it will not go anywhere that quickly. So... yeah, unfortunately, I can't stress it enough, but I mean, if we have a landfall north of Tampa, we've not had this, again, a major hurricane. We've not had a major hurricane make landfall north of Tampa, or even in the Tampa Bay area, in like 100 years. It's been forever. If you go back to the historical data on major hurricanes in just the last 64 years, there are none that have made landfall in the Tampa Bay area. The closest has been Ian, which was a couple years ago. I'm not trying to scare you guys. Again, I'm not here to scare you. I'm just telling you the facts here. Like, this would be catastrophic if that happens, if it makes landfall north of Tampa. And I've seen some people, I saw somebody say in chat before I went live, like, why are people hoping that this makes landfall near Cape Coral? Well, I don't think anybody hopes it makes landfall anywhere to begin with, but the thing is, if this does actually make landfall further to the south, let's say the eye is instead down in here, let's say that's where this low pressure center makes landfall, we'd be talking about an easterly wind over the Tampa Bay area, which would be similar to Ian, where it just pushes a lot of the water out, but still, we would deal with some level of storm surge, especially before eventual landfall. So, but if that happens, I mean, we're going to see water go into this bay back down near Cape Coral. So there's really no happy medium here, really, at this point. It's going to be catastrophic in some way when it comes to storm surge. Huge shout out to Kurt with the $20 super chat. Put some W's in the chat for Kurt, sorry. Thank you backwards for the super chat. Flooding in St. John's River is possible. Yeah, it will be possible. Let me go back to that map again. Where it was, this one right here. Yeah, it's very possible because again, we're gonna get that easterly and southeasterly, or not southeasterly, easterly and northeasterly wind as we go into the day after landfall, or at least about 18 hours after landfall. So that water is just gonna come into the river here. I don't think it's gonna be major, but I think it'll be enough for there to be at least some level of problems there for the St. Johns River. This particular look right now, at least from the Coastal Emergency Risks Assessment page, shows it really not going that far into the river. Really just northeast of Jacksonville, but this could change. Again, it's this particular map, it's pretty specific. It's very narrowed down on where the worst storm surge will be, but it's really just based off of where the line is in the middle of the cone of uncertainty. So that being right here, that would leave the worst storm surge south of the line. So, but again, don't focus on the line. Can't stress that enough. Again, when you're looking at the cone of uncertainty, do not look at the line. The landfall with Hurricane Milton could be anywhere between here and here. That's about Cedar Key, back just south of Cape Coral. It's a large area. Thank you, Meet, for the super chat. Thank you also, Jordan and Charlie, for these super chats. Will it be worse than Ian? I don't think this will be worse than Ian, but I mean, it's kind of it's kind of almost like a rhetorical question in a way, because Ian made landfall again, not in the like, unless this makes landfall right where Ian made landfall. They're different hurricanes. You know, Ian made landfall back down near Cape Coral. This hurricane could make landfall further north. So will it be worse is a question that it doesn't really have a straight answer, because if you're in Tampa and this makes landfall in Tampa, this would be way worse than Ian. But, you know, if this makes landfall in Cape Coral, just like Ian did, I would say Ian was probably worse. But again, it's too, I would just say that question's hard to answer, because it's not really, it'd be more location dependent, in my opinion. Will there be school on Tuesday? I have no clue. It depends on where you are. Again, I can't predict if you're not gonna have school. I know a lot of schools though are closing in Florida. Not sure if we have a map, but Dibble, are you watching? Is there like a map somewhere of like evacuation orders and stuff? If anybody sees anything on Twitter, like a map or something like that, at me on Twitter. By the way, this is the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. The eye wall is officially closed. Rapid intensification will begin very shortly with Hurricane Milton. So the eye wall has now fully closed. Most West Coast schools are closed through Wednesday, is what somebody said. I think they'll be closed through Thursday, to be honest. For me, there's no school Monday through Thursday. Nice. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of school closures, for sure. Tampa schools are closed through Wednesday. This will be a Category 10 hurricane. That's not a thing. I don't think this will be a Category 6. Okay. By the way, our next National Hurricane Center update is at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2 hours from now. Just under 2 hours. So we'll be here probably up until then. Maybe even a little bit later after that. Okay, let me see. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Again, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. And like the stream again if you're new as well, if you're enjoying the stream so far. Again, we'll be having live updates, live streams, and live or even videos as well over the next several days up until and even upon landfall. And we'll have several storm chasers upon landfall in Florida as well. So make sure to subscribe if you're new here. No problem, Edmund. This will be a Category 5. I think there's a good chance that this is a Category 5 as we go into Tuesday morning. And I honestly think that this will make a very close appearance, a very close approach at least at becoming a Cat 5 on Tuesday morning, or even during the afternoon. But again, I don't think this is going to be a Cat 5 upon landfall in Florida. Can't stress it enough. Again, this is not going to be a Cat 5 in Florida unless the forecast, again, really changes in the next 24 hours. But here's the thing, we have, again, wind shear, vertical wind shear that's going to be in place here near Florida, which will weaken this hurricane once it gets closer. But the other thing is it's going to broaden out the wind field. So we're going to be talking about a large area of tropical storm force winds that impact the state of Florida, especially central and western Florida. So again, even if this does end up weakening, we're still dealing with, you know, pretty major impacts nonetheless. Disney has stopped accepting new hotel reservations for Tuesday. Yeah, Disney, I would assume, is going to close on whatever day this makes landfall. If it makes landfall, I don't know if it'll close Wednesday, but it might like close for like half the day. If it makes landfall Wednesday night, if it makes landfall Thursday morning, they might just be closed most of Thursday. Thank you, Kat, for the super chat. Thank you, Tom, also for the super chat. I would say that when it comes to rainfall accumulation, I'm guessing, I think that's what you're asking. Where's my rainfall accumulation graphic? I think it was this and I changed it. Let me go back to rainfall accumulation here. The rainfall accumulation is going to depend, again, on where the eye makes landfall, because wherever the eye makes landfall, the worst of the rain and the worst of the accumulation will be on the north side. With that said, we could still see flooding elsewhere, but this is the European model, has it making landfall right in Tampa Bay as we go into Wednesday evening, and the worst of the rain falls just west of Tampa back through Jacksonville, with some spots picking up upwards of 18 inches of rain, at least in some isolated locations. It's not going to be a widespread number, but isolated areas could pick upwards of 18 inches of rain up. So I currently think the worst of the rainfall accumulation will be along and just north of I-4, but that is very subject to change. It's going to depend on where this exactly makes landfall, because if it makes landfall further south near Cape Coral, the worst of it would be in here. If it makes landfall back up near Gainesville, the worst of it would be back over near Gainesville and Jacksonville in southeastern Georgia. Another thing I can't stress enough is that Florida does not need more rainfall. Like, that's the last thing that we need in Florida, is more rain. Do you think we could have our first ever Category 6 hurricane soon? Just wondering. Category 6 hurricanes do not even exist on the scale. So, no. That should not be a serious question. There is a lot of conspiracy theories that are going around on Twitter. People saying that we need to destroy radar sites and stuff. It's getting crazy on Twitter and TikTok too. But, you know, I've got to be honest with you, like, guys, please. The amount of misinformation that's going around is literally insane. I joke about it when I say Category 6, but like, there's been some off-the-chart stuff being said on social media over the last few days. It's crazy. Thank you, Matt, for the super chat. How's it going? In California. Nice. Tampa is in a drought. I don't know about that. Let me check the drought monitor. I don't think Florida's in a drought at all. Yeah, Florida's not even in a drought. This is the drought monitor map. There's not a single part of Florida, other than back up near, like, Destin, I think, that's in a drought. There's a reason why a Category 5 hurricane is advertised as 157-mile-per-hour winds. Or greater. There's a greater sign. There's a reason why, because we don't go higher on the scale. So... Thank you, Kurt, for the 10 gifted members. Put some W's in the chat for Kurt. If you got a gifted member, make sure to thank Kurt in the chat. If you guys do see anything on Twitter, like reports, evacuation orders, or anything like that, you can at me on Twitter at MaxVelocityWX, and I'll relay some of that information as well on here. Okay. Back to questions. I'm watching on both phone and TV. W in the chat. Thank you, Smith. B. Smith, also for the gifted member. You sent me a Twitter? Okay. I'm getting mentioned in a lot of stuff, but I'll try to... Alright, there is a evacuation order site that I'm going to try to pull up here. Thank you, Goose, for the 5 months. How's it going, villages? Alright, there are evacuation orders. All right, so this is the latest on evacuation orders. I'm gonna go on the map here and just show you guys as well. Let's take off infrared imagery. And all right, so this is the latest. There are currently mandatory evacuation orders, I believe. Okay, these are the latest. So in Pasco County, Florida, so that is going to be just north here of Tampa. That's like that's Dade City, just south of Spring Hill. So just to the north there, that particular county is currently under an evacuation order for zone A and B. And everyone living in a manufactured home, mobile home, or RV anywhere in Pasco County needs to evacuate. Pinellas County, which is like Tampa, basically. Pinellas County, just west of Tampa. That's this county right here. So St. Petersburg, Palm Harbor. This should not be a surprise, but this county also under an evacuation order. That is for all residential healthcare facilities within evacuation orders A, B, and C. And this will commence today. Or already has commenced at 1:30. So that's another evacuation order. And then the other one is Manatee County, which is going to be just to the south of Tampa. So the one that's not right now is Tampa right now, but that'll probably change. The other one's going to be like Bradenton. That is Manatee County, Florida. That's under an evacuation order. That is for all persons in level A and B for the evacuation zone, again, and then all residents or visitors in RVs or mobile homes ahead of Hurricane Milton beginning at 2 p.m. tomorrow. So that's another area that we are looking at for evacuation orders. Thank you, Andy, for the super chat. The death toll for Hurricane Helene, I think, is over 235 now. Might be up to 240. I don't remember the exact number, but it's up there now. It just keeps going up. I mean, a lot of it came from the flooding, but yeah, that's pretty awful what happened in the Carolinas. And I have not talked about this on a stream yet. We've not been live since we started this, but we have actually partnered, if you guys have not already heard on one of our videos or live streams, we have partnered with the Y'all Squad for Hurricane Helene relief efforts, and we are also going to probably have one for Hurricane Milton relief efforts. And so we here at Max Velocity are collaborating with the Y'all Squad to raise money for storm relief victims and basically anybody that's been a part of tragedies like Hurricane Helene. And I talked to Ryan Hall. We're working together here on raising money, and I want to make this straight. I'm not making any dime off of this, by the way. I want to make that extremely straight here. A couple people asked about it. I'm not making anything from this. This is a collaborative effort to raise money for people that have been impacted by Hurricane Helene, and then again anything that happens after this, like Hurricane Milton. So we've raised over $23,000 just with our link, and that was over only a few videos. I think it was like 2 videos and then some social media posts. We raised over $23,000 for Hurricane Helene relief efforts. And hopefully with Milton, hopefully we don't have to do this, but if we do end up doing this again for Milton, hopefully we can crush that goal. And hopefully we don't need it, but I think it's going to be a pretty catastrophic event for Florida. And if you want to have if you want updates on like what the Y'all Squad is doing and stuff, you can go to our Twitter page, follow me on there, and you can also follow the Y'all Squad on Twitter. If you guys want to donate to that, I will pin the link in the chat. So if you want to donate to it, I don't have it in the description, but I will pin it in the chat or replace that with a membership link. So if you want to donate to that, feel free. That's for Hurricane Helene, but it's basically going towards both. But yeah. And again, this is a official 501c. This is a non-profit. So it is a fully non-profit charity. Thank you, Undefeated, for the super chat. Thank you, Blue-Eyed, for the super chat. Thank you, Rachel, for the super chat. I wouldn't say nobody knows what's going to happen. It's more, I wouldn't even say that, honestly. I feel like we know what's going to happen. The question is where this makes landfall will be pretty crucial when it comes, I think, to storm surge and the potential for something catastrophic in Tampa Bay. So, again, we know that this is going to be pretty catastrophic. This is actually the worst, or not the worst, but I would say this is like the most evacuations that we've had from a hurricane for Florida since Irma back in 2017. At least that's what the government is saying, I'm pretty sure, in Florida. They're saying that this is like going to be more evacuated or around as evacuated as Irma was. So there's a lot of evacuations already underway, and they're just going to keep going over the next few days. Thank you, Joe, for the super chat. I don't think George is going to see much out of this, to be honest. Thank you, Tom, also for the $10 super chat. Will the strong northeast wind make this monster to Hulk? I'm not sure what that means. Northeast wind. That's very vague. I'm not sure if you're talking about like the jet stream or something. The one thing that's going to amplify this is that we do have a jet streak that is in place here in the southeast United States, and that jet streak, which is the maximum basically winds in the jet stream, is going to help to amplify the intensity of this hurricane, in addition to a very low shear environment here in the southern Gulf of Mexico and very warm waters. That's all going to help intensify it. And then again, once it gets closer to land, wind shear will take over more, but it's still going to be a major problem. I don't think Daytona is going to see what Ian dropped in terms of rainfall. I think Daytona Beach had like 20-25 inches of rain with Ian a couple years back, but I do think the Daytona Beach area needs to be prepared for flooding, because we could still see somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20 inches of rain if the eye stays just down to the south. Power outages, I would say, are likely for Daytona. That is, again, if this eye literally just goes up I-4. If this goes up I-4, Daytona's going to lose power, almost undoubtedly. I think Orlando's in the same boat, too. Thank you, Sarah, for becoming a member. Thank you, Brady, for the super chat. Guys, we're not talking about October 21st for weather. We can barely predict weather a week in advance. We're not talking about 15 days from now. Please. Let's please just focus on what's happening in the next, like, 4 days. I'm not trying to forecast something that's an eternity out. Yeah, check this real quick. Thank you, Blue, also for the super chat. I don't think North Carolina or South Carolina are going to see much, but the one thing I'd say that could happen is that we get an easterly wind that brings a little bit of storm surge inland, but that's about it. Jim Cantori just arrived in Punta Gorda, says JB with the super chat. I don't know where Punta Gorda is. Somewhere on the coast, I know that. Oh, that's back down near Cape Coral. I think that's interesting, to be honest. Thank you, Immortal, for the super chat. I honestly, I've been kind of leaning towards this. We've seen this windshield wiper effect with models going back and forth on landfall. The most recent data still shows a large range of where this can make landfall, but it's basically between Cape Coral and just on the north side of Tampa Bay. It's essentially, at this point, likely that we are going to see a significant storm surge event for either the Tampa Bay area, Cape Coral, or both. You know, that either one of those harbors and bays, like those are the two areas that we could see the most significant impacts when it comes to storm surge. And that could, again, be historic. Upwards of 10, 20 feet of storm surge is definitely not ruled out with something like this. I think our peak estimated storm surge with Helene and the Big Bend was like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's like an 18-foot observation with Helene, and we could see something like that here too. Check out Helene the last hour, it's blowing up. This is the infrared imagery on Helene. Oh yeah, look at that. Another big convective burst there. The eye wall has closed on Helene, or sorry, I keep saying Helene, has closed on Milton, and again, it's expected to rapidly intensify over the next 24 to 48 hours. And it, again, could make a run at Cat 5 level as it moves towards the north side of the Yucatan Peninsula. Any chance of a storm surge for the Everglades? Says Michael with the super chat. By the way, I'm not, even if you super chat, I cannot guarantee answering your questions. There are, again, 20,000 of you and one of me. So please chill. But down there, yes, there is definitely gonna be a chance for storm surge. Further, if it makes landfall in like Cape Coral, we're definitely gonna see higher storm surge. And then if it makes landfall up in Tampa, it would be lower. But I can't really put an exact number on storm surge yet. I'm gonna wait for the National Hurricane Center to put out their forecast before I start talking more about storm surge. They usually nail the storm surge forecast, so it's too early to tell right now, in my opinion. Thank you, Secret, for the super chat. Miami will be affected mostly with rain. Thank you, Julianne, for becoming a member. Thank you, Nine, also for the super chat. We need 19,999 more maxes on the stream to answer questions. Absolutely. Let's do that. Huge shout out to Deborah, by the way. Thank you to anybody that's contributed to the Y'all Squad campaign that we did for Hurricane Helene, and again, upcoming efforts. There was a ton of you that donated. Shout out to Deborah with a $100 donation for the Y'all Squad, which again is going to help with hurricane relief efforts. There was somebody that donated $750 on here. I'm not sure where it is, but like I'll try to find it here. But like whoever donated $750, huge W's for that person. I'll see if I can find them. Steve Tipton, huge W in the chat for Steve. $750 contribution, and we're all the way down here at the. You can't even see me. I'm at the like the very bottom. Huge shout though to Steve. Thank you, JB, for the super chat. We got a direct hit from Ian. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think, like, if we go back to the historical major hurricane data, look at how many hurricanes that are major that have made landfall in this part of Florida. There's like, is that 6? That's 6. We had Irma in 2017. We had Ian in 2022. We had Charlie in 2004. They basically made landfall in the same place. Donna in 1960. We had a couple others as well. Wilma was the other one. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. Pull up Wilma real quick. Where is Wilma? Wilma in 2005. Can I pull this one up? Maybe not. Okay. Yeah, Wilma was a crazy one too, but it's not letting me pull it up. Hey, Nicholas, for the super chat. Yeah, if you guys are trying to watch Sunday Night Football, I don't think it's popping right now. There are storms up there. That's what it looks like up in Pittsburgh. Plenty of storms in the area. They might. I don't know when they're gonna start playing, but it's definitely delayed. Definitely gonna be delayed. There's a lot of storms up there. Game set to begin in 15 minutes. All right, I gotcha. So 15 minutes apparently. That game might be. I don't know how that game's gonna go. It might be low scoring because of all the water on the whatever they have, turf or whatever it might be. Friendly reminder, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We are quickly approaching 420,000 subscribers. If every one of you subscribes, it's not subscribed right now, we might hit that. And if you are new, subscribe. We're going to continue to have live updates and forecasts over the next several days on Hurricane Milton as it approaches Florida. So make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Thank you, Jay, also for the super chat. Marion County. I don't know where that county is. Is that the Ocala area? I think that area will be mostly the potential for flooding, rainfall, and then hurricane force wind speeds. But again, it's still a question of where this makes landfall. If this makes landfall further south, then your winds would be much lower, probably tropical storm force, and then rainfall would also be less than, 10 to 15 inches, for example. But if it makes landfall like where it's currently thought to make landfall near Tampa or between Spring Hill and like Cape Coral, then you'll probably see those impacts. Flooding, rainfall, and hurricane force wind speeds. Thank you, Dash, for becoming a 1-month member. Appreciate that. Thank you, Reckless, also for the super chat. Any way to slow the chat down? Yeah, let me try to slow down a little bit more here. Thank you, Jen, for becoming a 5-month member. Kennedy Space Center impacts. I think the biggest concern for the east coast of Florida will be more of the storm surge as we go into the day after landfall or later in the day after landfall, depending on when it makes landfall. But I would say more than anything, hurricane force wind is going to be the biggest concern, because if this just crosses right across the state of Florida, we're going to be more than likely talking about pretty significant winds in that area. Somebody just asked about where I think this will make landfall. That is a good question. I haven't really solidified like an exact location for landfall, but I think at this point I would expect landfall between just north of Spring Hill and somewhere just north of Cape Coral. Like this is like the range that I'd put for landfall right now. in my opinion. Again, that's not the current cone, but that's where I think it would make landfall. Based off of that, I do think it'll probably make landfall either somewhere just around or just south of Tampa or just north of Tampa. That's what I'm thinking. So, again, that's my personal thought on it. But it also could go further north. I mean, it is expected to turn more to the north, so there's a possibility that this still could go up more towards, like, just southeast of Cedar Key, but... Thank you, Vic, for becoming a member. By the way, our next update from the National Hurricane Center is in an hour and a half, just under that, and then... hurricane models, the latest ones will come out around about midnight or just after that Eastern time. So these are the 18Z model runs. The intensity guidance is out on some of the computer models that are on Tropical Tidbits. And again, still a pretty large range of peak intensity, but somewhere between a Cat 3, Cat 5 expected as we go into Tuesday, and then eventual landfall late Wednesday into Thursday will be somewhere between a high-end Cat 2 to as high as a low to middle grade Cat 4. But I don't think this will be a landfalling as a Cat 4 in Florida, but still could change. Depends on how fast that wind shear weakens it. The other thing to keep in mind with this hurricane too is with Ian, there was wind shear, and the wind shear did nothing to it. There's a chance that the wind shear doesn't really do anything to this hurricane either once it gets closer to landfall. So we could see this still as a Category 3 to 4 hurricane approaching Tampa. Which is hence why the current forecast from the National Hurricane Center, which, by the way, they've been very accurate this year, they are currently thinking that the maximum wind speeds could be around 120 miles per hour. So that's definitely up there in terms of wind speeds. And then wind gusts around 150. Thank you, Brittany, for the super chat. Will my kids be okay in Hilton Head, South Carolina? I think the biggest thing will just be some storm surge up there. Aside from that, not really expecting much. So if you're right along the coastline, a little bit more concerning. If you're a little inland there near Hilton Head, then you'll be fine. But currently no storm surge forecast, again, from the National Hurricane Center. I think we'll have one by tomorrow. We should have one tomorrow. We might even get one tonight. Does anybody know when they release the storm surge forecast? I can't remember when they start. I think it's 3 days before landfall or 2 days before landfall they start doing it. Because we're currently 3 days from landfall. At this exact moment, we're about 3 days or so, 72 hours from landfall or so. Does anybody know when they start issuing those? But I would say probably like 1 to 3 feet up there, maybe a little bit higher. I think the earliest that we would get it would be like at 11 p.m. tonight, but I don't think they'll release it tonight. I could be wrong. I don't know why. I mean, we don't usually go live this far in advance for a hurricane, but with how impactful this is expected to be, that's why we're live 3 days in advance. I think with Helene we were live 3 days in advance as well, but the Helene update that we did was not nearly as long as this one's gonna be. So thank you, Philip, for the super chat. I would say hurricane force winds in somewhere around like 80 to 100 miles per hour near Lakeland. Yeah, they do have a storm surge inundation map now, which I have pulled up, which right now they have upwards of 9+ feet of storm surge right along the Tampa Bay area here. But they right now have like the worst of the surge being back down in the Charlotte Harbor area, just northwest of Fort Myers. And this is Fort Myers Beach, which is expected to be completely flooded over. And they have already ordered mandatory evacuations there. That was as of not too long ago. Thank you, Moon, Fairy, Daniel, and Kendra for all becoming members. And welcome to the Velocities. How will Palm Beach be affected? Are you talking about West Palm Beach? Talking about West Palm Beach, I think your greatest concern will just be, like, some rain. There won't be much else down there, I don't think. If this makes landfall, though, down near Cape Coral and goes, like, down there towards West Palm Beach, I think we'll be talking about bigger problems when it comes to wind and then also storm surge. But at the 11 p.m. advisory tonight, they are going to condense this cone even further. So that's, again, just a little over an hour out from now. We are expecting the cone to be smaller, and so we'll get some of the basically where this could make landfall be condensed a little bit more. And the intensity forecast will probably change a little bit. Thank you, B. Smith, for the super chat. I did not see an unwarned tornado. I wasn't looking at radar at 810. We've been mostly just focused on Milton. You have recommendations for good cities to shelter in. So if you are evacuating and you are in Florida, you don't necessarily have to go to another state, okay? The biggest thing that people usually evacuate for is if, one, they are right along the coastline and in an area that is prone to storm surge, or two, in an area that is like, if you're like in a mobile home or a RV or something like that. Those are the two situations in most cases where you evacuate, or if there's some sort of flooding threat, right? If you're like in a low-lying area. So those are the reasons why most people evacuate. So again, if you are in Central Florida, you know, you don't necessarily have to evacuate if you're in a 2-story building in a higher elevation area. Again, there's not any mountains in, you know, Florida, but if you're like, you know, not really in a low-lying area. But, you know, if you're in Tampa Bay, for example, let's say you're right along the coastline. Let's say you're in Adamsville. I don't know what's there, but let's just say you're in Adamsville. Most of the time, you don't have to go all the way up to Georgia. Like, you can just go to, like, the Lakeland, Florida, or Mulberry to a hotel for a night or two, or whatever it might be, and then just, you know, stay there. That's usually a pretty safe bet. But you don't have to go all the way up into Georgia or something like that. That's not what you know, that's not what it necessarily means to evacuate. Evacuating can mean going from Cape Coral to, you know, the town next door, maybe over in River Hall or something, whatever it might be. And then again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go from Cape Coral to, I don't know, Knoxville, Tennessee to stay away from this thing. So you are still going to feel impacts even if you move 10 minutes away. It's just it'd be mostly wind. All hotels have been sold out. I find that hard to believe, but I will look real quick and see. I'm gonna look at the hotel map and see what we're actually looking at right now. Let's do Wednesday to Thursday. I like how they're still selling hotels right along Clearwater Beach in Florida. Like, who is gonna stay there? I don't. They're not all full. A lot of these are popping up on here. Unless this just doesn't filter out. Are they actually full? I mean, I'm looking at Google and it shows a lot of stuff available. I mean, I'm looking at Ocala, Florida, and there's some that are available. I don't think they're all sold out. I would watch it. Yeah, have a storm chaser go stay at a hotel right along the coast. Be crazy. People do it though. They do it sometimes. Thank you, Diane, for the super chat, and Lauren. Reed would stay there. He would stay at an Airbnb. He would even go lower. He'd be on the first floor of a hotel if he was actually, you know, staying at a hotel. Oh, this is a view of Milton in future radar form. This is the HWRF model. See how it kind of follows along the line for the most part. Kind of goes back and forth, though, a little bit. The HWRF has a much further north landfall in Florida, but wind shear and some dry air will eventually weaken it near landfall. But this particular model right now is making landfall around 8 a.m. on Thursday. So there is a chance that the landfall timing here could be pushed back a little bit. I'm really hoping that this doesn't make landfall in the overnight hours. That'd be pretty bad. Just because, again, people are usually sleeping. This is Milton on the HMON model. The hurricane models have been pretty bullish on this going further north of Tampa, which is interesting. And again, don't just pay attention to the precipitation here, because this is all where the heaviest rain is, but like we can still see storm surge like significantly on the south side, even if the rain isn't there. That's just the dry air that's kind of cutting off rain and wind shear, again, being a problem. Always goes north. Can't really disagree. I feel like a lot of these hurricanes, they always seem to go north. Tampa has like a weird thing going on though. I mean, if this for whatever reason goes either towards Cape Coral or makes landfall all the way up here near Cedar Key, Florida, that would be kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie, because like Tampa has, again, not seen a major hurricane. And I'm not saying like this is like impossible to happen. It's just, it's crazy that we've had all of these different major hurricanes make landfall in Florida, and you know, most of them have made landfall down here or up in here. Like that's like the general consensus. Tampa's just kind of smack dab in the middle. It's really weird. Thank you, Harvest, for the super chat. Yeah, Bradenton's gonna see impacts. Bradenton will see impacts. Orlando will definitely get winds. Yeah, Orlando's almost definitely gonna get tropical storm force winds, but hurricane force winds are very possible as well. Luck? I don't know. It's weird. I mean, like, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've had about 7 or 8 hurricanes that are all major hurricanes make landfall up in the Florida panhandle. And then we've had a little over half a dozen down here in Southwest Florida near the Everglades. And we've only had a few East Coasters, but yeah, it's kind of a crazy trend, I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty crazy. Would you stay at a 4th floor apartment in the path away from the coast? I mean, if it was me, yes, I would. I mean, I think that'd be fine. Thank you, Adam, for becoming a maximum velocity member. Tua Tagovailoa asked me a question. I don't think he's in this chat. Not gonna lie. High tide in Tampa is at 6:50 a.m. on Thursday. Yeah, high tide, I mean, it's definitely bad when the storm surge is peaking at high tide, but it only adds like a foot, sometimes a foot and a half to storm surge. So it's not usually like a major difference. But it definitely is at least a small difference. Thank you, Manny, also for the super chat. I think Cape Coral is going to get some bad storm surge no matter what happens, but if for some reason this does actually make landfall up closer to the Big Bend, which this model doesn't show, but if it does go like closer to the Big Bend near Cedar Key, you would be talking about a much better scenario where you're not really dealing with much of a storm surge concern there. But you'll still be talking about tropical storm force winds. I was wondering about high tides. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what everybody's high tide is, but somebody said in chat it's 6:50 a.m. on Thursday. So yeah, it doesn't make a monster difference, but it does make enough of a difference to the point where it's a little bit worse. Thank you, Tug, also for the super chat. Me and my family have a Disney vacation. We fly out of DFW on Wednesday. What are your thoughts? I mean, my thoughts are you might not be seeing Cinderella on Thursday. I don't know if the park's going to be open on Thursday, but I think that it depends on when this makes landfall. I mean, again, the hurricane models are anywhere between about like 8 to 10 p.m. on Wednesday all the way up until like 10 a.m. 8 to 10 p.m. on Wednesday, between that and 10 a.m. or so on Thursday. So it's a large time frame. I think if this makes landfall Thursday, that Disney will be closed. But again, that's if the track stays as forecasted, if it goes right through Tampa and goes up through Orlando. So Disney doesn't close unless they have to, but I mean, this situation, I think it is very warranted. Again, if the eye goes where it's currently thought to go. If this makes landfall south of Cape Coral, I think they'll probably be open. If it makes landfall up near Gainesville, I think they'll be open. But if it makes landfall in this area here, they will more than likely at least have some sort of hour change. It might not be a full closure, but it might just be enough to the point where they aren't open for the entire day. Just depends again on when it makes landfall. Thank you, Mike, for the $10 super chat. Bench 3.0. We'll see. Maybe. What category is it right now? It is a Category 1 hurricane. Maximum sustained winds at 85 miles per hour. This is what it looks like right now. We will have a new National Hurricane Center update at 11. They are currently flying in the hurricane. This is the Hurricane Hunters. They are flying actively in the center of Hurricane Milton, and they are picking up on a pressure of 978 millibars. which for reference right now, it's at 981 millibars. So this is intensifying. Thank you, Random, for the super chat. As a professional pilot, I love your coverage and knowledge. Keep it up. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Maddie, for the super chat. Palm Coast right on the beach. Where is Palm Coast? Oh, up here? I mean, I would just kind of monitor trends. I wouldn't say you have to evacuate like right now or anything, but I would definitely keep a close eye on it because there will be some storm surge, I think, on Friday or even Thursday night. On the back side of this hurricane, we're going to have winds coming out of the east, so there will be some storm surge near Palm Coast, but we don't really, again, know what the number will be. It might be enough for you to evacuate, but it's a little bit too early to tell. But definitely have a plan ready to go in case you do have to evacuate. And again, evacuating doesn't mean you have to go from right here to, again, like Texas or something. Like, you can literally go a few miles inland of Palm Coast and you'll probably be fine, depending on what the storm surge forecast is. Thank you, Mike, for the 5 gifted members. Put some W's in the chat for Mike. You got a gifted membership, make sure to thank him in the chat. Thank you, Girl, for the $10 super chat. Condos and hotels are filling up fast in Panama City and Panama City Beach, Florida. They are going to be filling up fast. I mean, a lot of people are evacuating inland, so. Thank you, Wumpy, for the super chat. You follow weather often. Do they seem strange to you, like behavior-wise? Oh, goodness, here we go. I don't know much about storms, but lots of people are talking about weather manipulation. Oh, man, Twitter's been so bad over the last 2 days with weather manipulation. Guys, I mean, I'm just going to be straight up with you guys, and you guys can agree or disagree with me, I don't care. But weather manipulation, chemtrails, HARP, whatever you guys call it, is stupid. It's just a waste of my time of even talking about it. It's just a waste of my time in general to even talk about it. You can believe whatever you want, but no, I'm not talking about that crap. It's stupid. People like conspiracy theories. They like to stir the pot. Go for it. Do it on Twitter. I'm not doing it in this chat, though. All right? I'm not doing it on my streams. It's stupid. That's my take on it. You're welcome. It's so annoying. Like, before I went live, people were like, oh, we got, you know, people are going into politics about how, you know, I mean, I'm not even gonna get into it, but people are talking about politics with it. People are trying to say that there are some planes flying through it, so that's what's gonna bring this to a Cat 5. Guys, we've been studying weather for 100 years. All right, over 100 years. And we've had hurricanes, not necessarily like this one exactly in our observed history, but we've had hurricanes like this form in October that are major. It's not strange. It's happened before. It happened before airplanes, by the way. Goodness gracious. Thank you, Peter, for the $10 super chat. It's too early to tell, but I mean, if you're like near the beach, I would definitely be prepared to evacuate. I do think Tampa will at least have hurricane force winds. Thank you, Melody, for becoming a member. By the way, if you unsubscribe for me because I don't believe in weather manipulation or whatever, I don't care. So go for it. I don't care. You can go somewhere else and talk about your fun little stories and whatever else you find on Google, I guess. Thank you, All Sport, for the super chat. Hey, Dixon, for the super chat as well. Oh yeah, we got the space lasers too. I forgot about that. Yeah, space lasers. That's what's doing it. Thank you, Kim, for the super chat. I think Ocala, the wind speeds, again, it's too early to tell, but like a ballpark estimate, I would say is 70 to 90 mile per hour winds. A lot of this is ballpark because we just don't know exactly where this is going to make landfall. Once we have a better idea of landfall, we can go into more specific details. Thank you, Mama, also for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocities. Guys, we're about to hit 420,000 subscribers. I don't know if we just hit it. Our number is like almost there. Wow. We've hit, I don't know how many subscribers we've gained today, but it's been a lot. Thank you to anybody that subscribed to the channel. Again, if you are new to the channel, haven't already, hit the red button down below and subscribe. And we'll have live updates on Hurricane Milton as it approaches Florida every day, and we're also going to have videos. We're going to have 2 videos a day. So make sure you're subscribed and click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. Thank you, LK, for the super chat. Thank you, Sherry, for the super chat. Yeah, I don't know who mentioned me in this last night. Who was this? Guys, this stuff has got to stop. It's getting out of hand. Like, my hairline is not that bad. Thank you, Lane, for the $10 super chat. It's just, I mean, there's many reasons why models go to different places. They all have different parameterizations and such. So, you know, some, when you look at like the spaghetti chart, for example, like all the models are going somewhere else for various reasons. The biggest steering factor with this is going to be the jet stream off to the north and the cold frontal boundary, or stationary boundary that we're going to have off to the north. So that boundary is kind of going to control where this makes landfall. Are you proud for the super chat? Yeah, that was pretty atrocious. Whoever Livid WX posted that on Twitter last night. That was fantastic. People's models suggest you're bald by 33. Guys, I'm not gonna be bald by 33. My hair looks great right now. I'm growing out my hair, actually. I've not gotten a haircut in 2 months. We might be going full-blown, I don't know, maybe mullet mode. I don't know what we do. I don't know when I'm gonna cut my hair. I kind of like it right now. Thank you, JC, for the super chat. Port St. Lucie's probably just gonna be mostly wind and some rain. I don't think there'll be too much more than that there. Hey, Jedi, for the $5 super chat. Jacksonville for wind. Again, I'm just kind of ballparking numbers because, again, I still think it's too early to really talk about specific numbers. But the GFS model, for example, shows 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. If we go to the European model, the winds are a little bit higher on the European. European has it like near 60 to 70 Thursday morning. So yeah, it's a ballpark number. Thank you, Adam, for the $100 super chat. Put some W's in the chat for Adam. Appreciate the generosity. Me and my lady love watching your streams, Max. Are we getting a gritty tonight? And that hairline does look a little bootleg Supermanish. What does that even mean? Is that a good? If that's a good thing, I'll take that. If that's a bad thing, I don't know why you're super chatting $100 saying that, but I appreciate the generosity. Maybe we'll see. We might do one. Thank you, Connor, for the super chat. Is that queso as your profile picture? Southwest Cape Coral near the marina. Evacuation absolutely necessary. Again, listen to local officials on evacuations. I don't 100% know about that area. I would make a good guess, though, and say that there will probably be evacuation orders if the hurricane itself makes landfall somewhere near Cape Coral or just north of Cape Coral. Thank you, Cassie, for the super chat. Fan mail is being delivered tomorrow. Wear it on live. I actually have one fan mail right now. I don't think it's yours, but we do have I'll do it real quick. We have a fan mail from Earl. Is Earl watching? I don't know if Earl's watching in the chat, but we'll open it real quick. This was sent in by Earl. It's like wrapped up in this thing. We got two things. We got a Engraved Designs card. I'm guessing that's where this came from, was Engraved Designs. But we also got a Max Velocity business card. I'm not sure where the QR code takes me yet, so I'm not going to scan it yet. But we got legitimately a Max Velocity business card. There's also a keychain, which has like a little tornado icon on it. It's pretty cool. And it also has a QR code in this one. So I will not scan it yet because I don't exactly know where the QRs go, but that is a thing. Also, we didn't just get that. They also sent me a Max Velocity bench. They sent a bench, guys. That's unbelievable. This is an engraved bench. Max Velocity official weather forecasting bench. This might be the best fan mail I've ever gotten, honestly. We got a bench. I don't know how in the world they even did that, but that's kind of crazy. So W's in the chat for Earl. Wow, that's kind of crazy, not gonna lie. I didn't even know you could do that. Sheesh. All right, we got 1 hour until the National Hurricane Center update. For the next hour, we will be answering questions, and we'll also be just talking about upcoming Milton, and up until that update, we'll kind of continue to just talk about stuff. But again, the update at 11 p.m. tonight from the National Hurricane Center is an important one because it goes over a new cone of uncertainty, which will probably shrink a little bit, and then also the intensity forecast might change, and we might have our first storm surge forecast at 11. I'm not 100% sure, though. Okay, thank you, River, for the super chat. Thank you, Jared, for the $10 super chat. I hear constant conspiracies about weather control. Can you explain why that's insane? I'm not going to go over it, okay? I'm not going to keep going into this talk about conspiracies. What I'm just going to tell you is that I am in meteorology. I have a lot of friends. I am in the meteorology degree, okay? Every single meteorologist that I've ever talked to, every single person in the space that I have talked to that is a degreed or even a student of meteorology, none of them believe in this crap, all right? None of them. If you go into the studies of, like, quote-unquote chemtrails and stuff, guys, it's literally just planes flying by. And when you see those trails from a plane, it's when there's enough humidity in the atmosphere for that to even happen. So, I'm not going into the full-blown conspiracy stuff. I think it's just a waste of time. But, the research that people have done to say otherwise is just pointless. It's not research. People finding random articles on Google and believing everything they see is kind of crazy. Thank you, Keita, for the super chat. The effects on the East Coast probably going to be, again, wherever this makes landfall and goes through, hurricane force winds will be possible around that. Storm surge will be possible on the north side of the eye as it exits the coast. So we could see some storm surge near areas like Daytona Beach and Palm Coast. Thank you, Alex, for the super chat. Yeah, I mean, guys, honestly, like, this is like high school science, like a lot of this stuff. So, I don't know. Thank you, Paul, for the super chat, too. How far inland can we expect storm surge in Sarasota? Storm surge in Sarasota, again, it's too early to tell in terms of how high the storm surge will be. The storm surge inundation map, we go to that, which you can view this on the National Hurricane Center website, by the way. They have storm surge going pretty much into the coastline, but like not going really that far inland. So that Sarasota is right here. This is like North Sarasota. So again, doesn't really go that far inland. Hey, Cindy, for the super chat. Thank you, Pride, also for the $10 super chat. Thank you, Adam, for the 10 gifted members. Put some W's in the chat for Adam. And also, if you got a gifted membership, make sure to thank him in the chat. Thank you, Michael, for the super chat. I'm missing a lot of super chats right now. Thank you, Marilyn, for the super chat. This looks like an Ian 2.0. I would say this is not really an Ian 2.0. I don't know what I really could compare this to, but it's definitely not an Ian 2.0. It's gonna, I mean, again, wind shear is gonna be a problem before landfall, so it's gonna be weaker, and it's also gonna be a larger storm upon landfall. So, by weaker, I mean it's still gonna be a major hurricane. It's just gonna weaken a little bit. Hey, Shane, also for the super chat, and thank you to, how's it going, Brandon Kopic? Thank you, Earl, for the super chat. Oh, thank you, by the way. Yeah, Earl that just super chatted sent the bench. An engraved bench. Like, again, this is the coolest thing ever. I didn't know it was even possible. So I appreciate you sending this. It's probably the best fan mail I've ever gotten. And by the way, if you ever want to send fan mail, it is the 4th link in the description down below. If you ever want to send anything. Apparently we have more fan mail coming tomorrow, so we might have to do another fan mail opening on our update stream tomorrow night. Thank you, Doc, for the super chat. Lakeland will be more of a rain, or more of a wind concern in my opinion, but flooding rain's also a possibility. Thank you, Nicole, for the super chat as well. Michigan doesn't get much excitement. Michigan was kind of crazy back in the spring. Thank you, Corey Gherkin, for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocities. Big W's in the chat for Corey Gherkin. Are you guys still up in Tennessee? I think you guys are going to be driving down here soon. Guys, I don't have an ego, by the way. Somebody said that in the chat. I don't have an ego about weather manipulation. I have education in meteorology. Okay? Just letting you know. I have education. I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about. I'm done there's no more weather manipulation talk at all this week. All right, I'm not answering any more questions about it. It's just stupid. It's a waste of time for what we're trying to communicate here about this hurricane. Hey, Jason, for the super chat. Thank you, Breezy, also for the super chat. Port Richey. I've had a few questions about Port Richey. Let me find where that is first. I think it's like Tampa Bay, something like that. Yeah, just north of Tampa. I would say for right now, hurricane force winds and again storm surge right along the immediate coastline, the biggest concerns right now, and flooding rainfall too. But again, it's still a ballpark forecast because we don't exactly know where the eye of this will go. I think by tomorrow, like afternoon, maybe even by like Tuesday morning, we'll have a much better idea of where this will be making landfall. And by that point, we can really get into more specific details. A lot of this is just broad right now because we could see landfall up here. We also could see it be way down near Cape Coral and you see almost nothing. So, hey, James, for the super chat, what kind of winds are we expecting in Ormond Beach, right next to Daytona? No, it's a little early. I would say right now, like wind speed wise, like if worst case scenario, I'll just say would probably be around like 90 miles per hour. I would say ballpark like 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. We are in Knoxville, just delivered our last batch of supplies today off to Florida in the morning. W. Yeah, I saw you guys raised like, I don't even know how much, like $1,600 I thought I saw earlier. Big W. Brandon Kopic and Corey Gherkin were over in Tennessee helping with Hurricane Helene relief efforts. So W's on the chat for them. Hey, Diane for the super chat. Thank you, Macy, also for the super chat. I don't think the Florida Keys will be that bad. Again, storm surge going to be a concern, but aside from that, it's going to be mostly just storm surge, and I don't think it'll be that high. Unless, again, the landfall ends up being closer to the Everglades, which I don't think it will be that far down to the south. Is there a chance for it to make landfall as a Category 5? I don't think so. At least not for Florida. I don't think it'll make landfall as a Cat 5 in Florida. I think it'll make landfall as either a high-end Cat 2 or a low-to-middle grade Cat 3 in Florida. It's my current thinking. Again, could change, but for right now, that's my thinking on landfall intensity. The jet stream's not really pulling it north. It's more of a we're gonna have a stationary frontal boundary, and so that's more of the reason why this will probably end up staying wherever makes landfall, be more dependent on that. So yes, the pressure is dropping. Right now, Hurricane Milton, this is what it looks like over the last hour. You can also go to this view, another high definition view of Milton. But pressure has dropped by 3 millibars in the last couple of hours. Hey, Jake, for the super chat. Flying into Orlando Tuesday about 4 p.m. Thoughts on if the storm will be out by then? Tuesday. Are you talking about next Tuesday, or are you talking about tomorrow? Or this Tuesday, I mean. Like, this hurricane will not be impacting Florida until really Wednesday. Wednesday is when the impacts begin. And then Thursday would be also an impactful day. Those will be the 2 days to watch for. I mean, Tuesday, we're not really going to see anything. There's like a low tornado risk in like western Florida on Tuesday, but I'd say it's pretty low. Person that keeps adding me about the jet stream pulling it farther north, I've answered the question, I think, 3 times. So, has more to do with the boundary. When will they post a storm surge chart? I think it's going to be tonight or tomorrow morning. I don't really 100% know. I for whatever reason, I don't know what, like, I'm usually pretty good about this stuff, but I don't know what exact time they actually issue those forecasts. If anybody has when it actually gets issued, let me know. I mean, there are maps on their website, like storm surge inundation maps, that already kind of go over that stuff. It's just the map is way easier to read. Thank you, Jake, for the super chat. Oh, Thursday. I think that'll be a bit of a problem. I mean, it depends on when it makes landfall, but if this hurricane is right over Orlando Thursday afternoon, which is what a lot of hurricane models are kind of showing, then that'll probably be a problem. But if this makes landfall Wednesday night and gets through by Thursday midday to the East Coast, I think you'll have less problems. Thank you, Shuli, for the super chat, and also Kyle for the super chat. Will Tennessee, Ohio, or Indiana be affected? No. There's basically one state that'll be affected. Technically, I would say 3, but there's really just one. It's Florida. Florida's really the main place that's going to be impacted. Georgia and South Carolina, right along the immediate coastline, we could have a couple feet of storm surge, but other than that, there's really not going to be much up there. We also could see some isolated flooding in southeastern Georgia. Aside from that, there's really not going to be anything further north. Again, the track of this is going to be going right across Florida. The GFS model showing another hurricane after this one. We're going to get through this hurricane first, and then anything else after that we'll talk about if it's actually still being indicated by computer models. This is the GFS model in the most recent run. This is the hurricane making landfall Wednesday into Thursday, and then has another one right behind it. But again, we don't know if that's actually going to happen. It's too far out. That's what it looks like. It's another CAG storm that it shows. But again, this right here is still 8 days from forming, even if it forms. So we don't know if that'll happen. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because I will be going to South Carolina to go golfing in a little over a week from, I don't know what day, but about a week from now. So hopefully that does not exist. I would like to go on a brief trip instead of having to cover another hurricane. I mean, it's unbelievable how many hurricanes we've had make landfall in Florida, or in general in the United States this year. We've had Beryl, we've had Debbie, Francine, Helene, and now expected to be Milton. That's 5 hurricanes. It's crazy. Thank you, Zoom, for the $5 donation with the donation link in the description. I am in Florida. Yeah, we're in Florida. The plan right now, because we're going to be live for landfall coverage on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever it happens. The plan is that we are currently investing a little over $500 into equipment that will allow us to stay live in case a power outage does happen where I'm at, for up to like 20 minutes after that power outage happens, if that actually happens. So the good thing about that is if we do end up having a power outage, I will at least be able to say, hey, we might not be live much longer, in case, instead of just going out and I can't say anything. So the other thing is, if we get a power flash and not a power outage but a flash, then my stream would still stay on and we would still be live for wherever our stream takes us. So yeah, that's currently what we're planning on doing, but we're investing a lot into that. I would be buying a full-blown generator, but the ones that I could get will not ship in for like at least a week from now, and it's kind of useless if it's over a week from now. So unfortunately we can't really get one of those because it's just not enough notice. The ones I was looking into were like almost $1,000, so they're pretty expensive, but getting one of them, I think, for the future, especially if we have more hurricanes in Florida, it's probably not a bad idea. But I think the tornado threat will be pretty low. I don't think it'll be 0, but I think it'll be low. I think just before it makes landfall on either Wednesday or Thursday, it'll be more of a low to medium threat, but it should stay relatively low. Thank you, Kim, for the super chat. I think Wednesday morning will be all right for flying out of Orlando. Wednesday morning should be fine. I know, yeah. We're gonna also have a. Well, that's the reason why it's gonna be so expensive. We need to buy like 2 different, essentially, systems so that our router and as well as our entire setup here stays, intact in case we lose power. So we actually have to buy 2 different power supplies essentially. So Yeah, internet could go out too. I mean, that's a possibility, but I feel confident that that'll not be as much of an issue as power flashes and stuff like that. So I could also evacuate and go somewhere else, but I don't feel like it's worth it. So, but we'll see. Hopefully my plan works out, but if it doesn't, I don't know. Thank you, Spicy, for the $10 super chat. St. Augustine is probably gonna be mostly just rain, so flooding rain's possible. Tropical storm to hurricane force winds, and then storm surge is gonna be a problem after landfall because we're gonna have a western or an easterly wind that'll bring water into the St. Augustine area. So that downtown area is probably gonna flood pretty quickly. We're about 45 minutes away from our latest update from the National Hurricane Center. Thank you, Clay, for the $10 super chat. Ballpark for Titusville, somewhere between 60 to 85 mile per hour wind gusts. Again, it's a ballpark. We'll know more tomorrow night when we do our next update. Can I go on a cruise Thursday in Cape Canaveral? I don't think so. I don't think they'll be doing cruises on Thursday. I could be wrong, though. We'll see. I mean, again, you'll have to look into your cruise line and see what's happening there. They'll have more information than I do. I'll just say, like, the waves are going to be higher. There's going to be storm surge potential over there, so you might not sail out Thursday. Depends on when this makes landfall, though. Thank you, Bean, for becoming a member. I have a gas-powered generator you can borrow. I appreciate the offer, but I don't want to take somebody else's generator. Like, the generator that I need is it's like an EcoFlow. It would be like a small, like, compact one, so it wouldn't be like a huge one. Thank you, CR, for the super chat. What organization are you raising money for? It is the Y'all Squad. It is the link that's pinned in chat. That is what we're raising money for hurricane relief efforts. And so if you want to make a donation, it is a 501c. It is tax deductible. The link is pinned in the chat. You can also go to the y'allsquad.com/max velocity. And that'll bring you there as well. Thank you, Ivan, for the super chat. Guys, I mean, 12 days out is unrealistic for forecasting hurricanes. In anything in general, so. Yeah, we are now working with the Y'all Squad well, not working with them, but we're like, we're collabing, I would say. And so, we're raising money for hurricane relief efforts. That goal that we had and all that money was from Hurricane Helene, but we're probably gonna have another campaign here for Hurricane Milton. Congratulations on 400k, appreciate it. We hit 400k on the Hurricane Helene coverage only a couple weeks ago. It's crazy that we're gonna have 2 major hurricanes make landfall in Florida in 2 weeks. Like, that might be literally the craziest thing ever. 2 major hurricanes in 2 weeks is kind of crazy. Because literally, Helene made landfall, was it Thursday or Friday? It was, I think it was Thursday. Like, it's crazy. They're gonna make landfall within 2 weeks of each other, and pretty close to the same area of Florida. Did the Y'all Squad give you a Starlink? No, I don't need a Starlink. It would be useful, though. I'll probably get one at some point, just not right now. No, they're donating stuff for hurricane relief efforts. They're not donating stuff to me. I don't need anything. Thank you, Mason, for the super chat. Anchors, yeah, I looked into anchors too. Yeah, I looked into a bunch of them. It's just the problem is it wouldn't ship in fast enough. That's the biggest problem. Everything that I was looking at would ship in like a week. Then you wing also for the super chat. It's gonna really just depend on where this again stationary frontal boundary ends up being on either Wednesday or Thursday when this makes landfall. That's the biggest factor into why or where this will exactly be making landfall. Vet, I'm not sure. I Oh, are you talking? Oh, do you have a live cam? Email me. My email's in the description. If you have a live camera or anything like that that you guys, or if anybody has a live camera that you guys might want me to use for Hurricane Milton, you can email me. The link, the email's at the very bottom of the description. Will Tallahassee be affected? I don't think so. I think Tallahassee's kind of in a safe place. If this, for whatever reason, goes very far to the north, I could see there being very low-end tropical storm force wind gusts, but that's about it. Brad, yeah, if this goes further north, I think wind shear will be a bigger problem for Milton. If we go back to the hurricane models, the HWRF model kind of has that happening, where it just weakens really quickly before landfall. And again, there's going to be wind shear in this area, vertical wind shear, which will weaken it. So, yeah, this would definitely weaken a lot more as it approaches landfall. If we go back over to the HMON model, kind of does the same sort of thing. That's Kirk. Does the same sort of thing. This one has it even weakening faster. They're like a Cat 1 or 2 upon landfall instead of a Cat 3 to 4. But again, I wouldn't be sold on one of these hurricane models quite yet. They all have different outputs right now in terms of wind speeds and intensity, but a lot of them are flirting around Category 3 intensity. So I'd say right now the HMON model is a little bit of an outlier. But if it goes further up to the north, then yeah, I think this will be a little bit weaker upon landfall. But we're still talking about major impacts nonetheless. Again, the size of this hurricane is going to blow up. I mean, this is going to go from a pretty small little hurricane, which that's what it is right now, and then it's eventually just going to blow up in size. You can see how large that wind field gets. It gets very, very large. So. Thank you, Amber, for the super chat. Appreciate that. All right, this is getting out of hand. I'm gonna show you guys something. Oh man, I've seen this message and I've addressed it, I think, 3 different times, and I'm still getting the question. What are the chances the jet stream will pull it farther north? And that's been repeated at I don't know how many times. Is that like 12 times? I have addressed that question so many times. Thank you, Joshua, for the $20 super chat. There's a lot of reasons. I would say the biggest reason why this is actually going to be making landfall in Florida and why this is even moving east to begin with is the jet stream. The jet stream is highly zonal. Like, it's very zonal this week. This is the trough, but it's very zonal. It's starting in a weird place. We don't usually see hurricanes or tropical storms in October develop in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, but there isn't like a trough that is dipping down to suck this thing up to the north. All that we have really is this zonal flow down here in the southeast, and that's what's going to be taking this more to the east. You can kind of see that happen here. The troughing is just enough to kind of pull it more to the east, but yeah, it's very interesting. We don't usually see a weather pattern like this in October in addition to a hurricane forming in the southwest Gulf. Thank you again for the generous $20 super chat. Put some W's in the chat for Joshua. Appreciate the generosity. Thank you, Andrew, for the super chat. This is a pretty rare situation. We don't usually have hurricanes like this. If we go back to historical data in the last 60 years on hurricanes that have formed in the Gulf of Mexico, like, look at the map. These are all the major hurricanes in the last 65 years that have developed here in the Gulf of Mexico. There are none that have started over here. The closest one was, I'm not sure what hurricane this is, Opal in 1995. That was a Category 4, but that one went north. We've never had a hurricane, at least, you know, in our history, at least in the last 65 years, that has started over here, which this one started about here, and is moving to the east-northeast, and it's going east. We don't usually even have hurricanes that go east. So this is a pretty rare situation for sure. This has never been seen, at least in the last 65 years, at least for, again, a major hurricane. Making landfall in Florida, I should say. So, we've never had a hurricane start over there and make landfall in Florida. But definitely pretty rare. Now, if we take off Florida and just do general, like, let me just type in United States here. Or how do I see every single storm? Do this? I'm not sure how you do this, but oh, there we go. Okay. This should show you every single major hurricane instead of the ones just in Florida. Unless the website's broken. The website might be broken. The website's been having, like, server issues, so it might not load. Thank you, Chris, for the $10 super chat. Anything folks can do inland to prepare? My parents live in Ocala. I would say the biggest thing is just make sure that you have food and water, have flashlights, have devices charged up and ready to go. And, you know, most importantly, if you are in an area that is in a low-lying area or, you know, near large trees, you might want to consider maybe evacuating to somewhere that's safer. But I think most people inland should be fine for evacuating. If you're in a mobile home, you should definitely have a plan to evacuate. Yeah, the hurricane's literally just gonna parallel the jet stream. It's pretty crazy. Again, I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. It's very rare. I'm not saying it hasn't ever happened. It's just something I've never seen. Thank you, Potato, for the super chat. I think Tampa winds-wise will be anywhere from 90 to 125 mile per hour winds. It's a pretty large range, but and as we get closer to landfall, we should have a better idea of what it'll actually be like. Should we evacuate in Bradenton? Listen to local officials on that. I would play it safe. If you're right along the coastline, especially, you should be, you know, considering evacuating. Again, evacuating doesn't mean you have to go up to Georgia. Just go a little inland away from the water. Because the storm surge, again, is the biggest thing that we're talking about when it comes to evacuations. We're not necessarily talking about, you know, we're not necessarily talking about hurricane force winds and other stuff. It's not always the reason why you evacuate. Storm surge is the biggest reason. Hurricane force winds is another big reason, especially if you're in something like a mobile home or an RV or something like that. Or a manufactured home. As a reminder, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. It is free to do. Hit the red button down below and subscribe. We are currently 250 subscribers from 421,000. So make sure to subscribe. Again, we'll keep you posted with the latest on updates on Hurricane Milton as it gets closer to Florida. We're going to have live updates every day and live coverage upon landfall in Florida. And we'll also have videos. 2 videos at this point every single day. Up until landfall day. So we're going to have plenty of updates for you. So make sure that you're subscribed. And we'll keep you posted with the latest. Also, click the bell icon down below so you're notified with the latest updates. Thank you, Kyle, for the super chat. It depends on many factors, Kyle. I mean, the jet stream is one big factor. Low pressure systems, high pressure systems, that's what usually controls the direction of a hurricane. So if we had like a low pressure right here, for example, a low pressure center that was strong, we could see this take a, you know, again, this is hypothetical, but we'd basically be able to see this take like a turn like this. Right, so low pressure can steer it. In this case, it's more of the jet stream that's going to be kind of steering this with a stationary frontal boundary. That's going to kind of basically place wherever this hurricane goes. With a hurricane like Kirk, that's all the way back out here in the Atlantic Ocean. We have a high pressure right here, and this is just going to spin right around it. And then we also have Leslie that's going to kind of just go northwest. Not really anything steering that one, but high pressure will probably eventually steer that one more to the north. But a lot of the time, it's either the jet stream, low pressure system, high pressure system. That's usually what steers it. Can you stream all day tomorrow? I will not be streaming all day tomorrow. I don't think there's any reason to stream all day tomorrow. I mean, we'll probably at least do 1 or 2 live, or we'll do 1 live update, I think, tomorrow. I don't think we'll do 2, but we'll do 1. Tuesday, we might have a couple live updates, depending on what happens. Maybe 2, maybe 1, we'll see. And then Wednesday, we'll be live for coverage as long as it makes landfall Wednesday. And the model's been showing Thursday morning landfall recently. I do not want to be live for Thursday morning landfall. That sounds atrocious. Just gonna be honest with you. Like, I do not want to wake up at 5 a.m. covering a hurricane. I'd be so dead. That's what happened last time with Debbie. I had to wake up at like 5 a.m. I was only awake because of adrenaline. It was something else. And Debbie wasn't even like that big of a storm, to be honest. It was pretty weak upon landfall. You are not a morning person. I am not a morning person. That is factual. The next National Hurricane Center update will be in the next 30 minutes, so make sure to stay tuned, or at least come back when that happens. We'll provide you with the latest details on what they are forecasting. If there are any changes to the forecast, we'll let you know. Where is the forecast thing that I was just looking at? Wait for the historical tracks data to come back. I was gonna see the entire U.S. major hurricane landfalls in the Gulf, but wait till it updates again. Thank you, Eli, for the super chat. Sounds good. Yeah, I don't think the Carolinas are going to get much out of this, but I do appreciate the super chat. Landfall ETA, anytime I would say between 9 p.m. Wednesday up until 10 a.m. on Thursday. It's a 24-hour period, but that's kind of where we're at right now. You can make landfall anywhere between that time frame. I don't think Miami's going to see much out of this. Mostly just rain. Potential for some flooding. You have to get up and do the 3 a.m. news. Yeah, that'd be painful. If I ever go to news and have to do a morning shift, that would be so painful. 3 a.m. is atrocious. Thank you, Kyle, for the super chat. No problem. Appreciate the generosity. Supposed to go on vacation to Orlando this week. Should we cancel? I mean, it depends on when you're going and how long you're going to be there. If you're going Wednesday and only there till Saturday or something, I would probably cancel it, because you're not going to really have much of a vacation. Be more of a storm chasing vacation. Disney already closed? I don't think Disney closed. They haven't said. There's no way they're already closed. I know they aren't accepting new hotel reservations or something, but no way they already closed. Let's see if they have any posts here. Yeah, they're not. There's nothing about them closing yet. They have waived the hotel cancellation and change fees for Milton. That's really about it. They've released some sort of statement as 8 hours ago about it. I don't know what that all entails, but I mean, I'm just guessing they're saying, oh, we're watching the hurricane and we'll let you know once we get closer or something about what they're doing. Could be like Irma. I think it could be like Irma when it comes to power outages. We could see some widespread power outages across a pretty large chunk of central and western Florida. Hey, JR for the $4.99. The eye isn't really that large, and it's not forecasted to be that large even upon landfall. The biggest thing that's going to happen for that area will be storm surge, but it'll also be hurricane force winds. I think the wind field, the biggest thing that's going to change between what it looks like now, between what it will look like upon landfall, is that the wind field is going to be about 2 times larger than what it is right now. So that's the biggest difference between now and 3 days from now when it makes landfall. So wind is really going to be the biggest change in terms of the forecast. The winds are going to increase quite a bit as this approaches Florida. We'll be talking about hurricane force wind potential for the Tampa Bay area and also near Bradenton, for example. So again, if you're in a manufactured home or an RV or something like that, I would definitely recommend evacuating. Yeah, our next update in about 25 minutes or so. They're usually early on their hurricane updates, so just have to wait and see. Thank you, Kyle, for the super chat. No problem at all. Appreciate you tuning in. The recon data as of a few minutes ago has now observed a pressure near 975 millibars in Milton. This is the aircraft recon data. They are currently inside of the storm, but they measured around 975, 976 millibars. So it is continuing to intensify here in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Thank you, Janet, for the super chat. They updated Kirk already. This is the latest in terms of the core of Milton. It is now condensed. That's what it looks like. It is a fully confined core, which will again promote rapid intensification here over the next 24 to 48 hours. It's on the microwave imagery. Yeah, we might get a new National Hurricane Center update here pretty soon on Milton. I mean, it might come sooner than 11 o'clock, but we'll see. But yeah, they just updated Kirk, so that means we'll probably get something at some point here soon. Alright. Reading. I had to read one Twitter comment, and now I'm back to chat. Alright. Is there a prediction on how fast it'll be moving as it approaches landfall? That is a good question. I'm not sure what the forecasted speed is upon landfall. I know it'll be probably faster than it is right now. I mean, if we do like an estimate between here and here over 24 hours, it's 395 miles divided by 24. So 16 miles per hour, approximately. I mean, that's very approximate, though. And then between these two grid points, 1 a.m. to 1 p.m., that's 12 hours. That'd be 174 divided by 24. So probably around 174 divided by... Oh, 174 divided by 12. It'll be moving around 15 miles per hour or so nearing landfall. Quick math. I could also look at a computer model and probably get the same data, but also do math on their grid spacing. Thank you, Eli, for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocity. Thank you, John, for the super chat. Is it going to hit Cleveland? No. What formation is that below Miami? It's just a lot of convection. I mean, this is nothing really interesting. The one thing I found interesting, which again, I'm going to show you a model that you should never use for hurricanes, ever. But I want to show you just for the interesting part of this. The NAM3K model actually forms a tropical, like a small little tropical storm almost just west of Florida out of some of that convection. I don't know what that pressure is that it's trying to show on here, but that's probably crazy. But yeah, you know, it shows like, at least on the 18Z model run, it showed like a little tropical storm forming out of this like random convection. But this is just all rain. I mean, it's just moisture and rain. Nothing really crazy. Yeah, never use the NAM3K model. Honestly, in general, it's not that great of a model, but... The new National Hurricane Center cone will come out with the update, which is expected in the next 25 minutes. Yeah, I think it'll be out by like 10:50. So it'll probably be out in like 15 minutes or so, but bottom right of your screen, it says 11. It could be sooner, it could be later. Twitter is unhinged, but when it comes to weather, but Max is always on par. Keep it up. Appreciate that. What do you see happening with the next cone update? Probably a shrinkage of the cone. I think that'll be like the biggest thing. I don't know if they're going to change a whole lot, but I think the biggest thing would be the cone is going to shrink down a little bit, so we'll have a more narrow corridor of where we can expect landfall. And this middle line, which a lot of people look at, again, I don't recommend you look at just the middle line because we could see landfall anywhere in this area, but the middle line will probably shift to some degree. Who knows where? I honestly, like, this is a tough forecast. The models are pretty split right now. Like, I've kind of mentioned this before, but like the hurricane models, for the most part, are all around and just north of Tampa. The GFS and the European model are also up there just north and around Tampa. Then when you look at the spaghetti chart here of different models that are not including the ones I just mentioned, a lot of them are just south of Tampa. So there's a pretty large split right now. I would say, though, I personally think that this is going to make landfall just north of Tampa. But again, it could change. It really could make landfall south, too. It's hard to tell. This is a harder forecast, I think, than Helene, to be honest. 3 days out with Helene, I'm pretty sure we're pretty spot on with where it's going to make landfall. And this one, the problem is, like, with this one, it's a major difference. Like, if this makes landfall in Apalachicola instead of Cedar Key, it's a big difference, but it's smaller population, centers, and if you know what I mean. When you're talking about this hurricane, it is impacting highly populated areas. We're talking about Tampa Bay, which is a very populated area, and the bay itself, if that storm surge goes into Tampa Bay, it's going to be catastrophic. On the flip side, if it makes landfall down near Cape Coral, it's the same way. So it's very difficult to tell. I mean, this is a very hard forecast. The communication of this forecast is critical too. I'm trying to be conservative on my approach to this. I'm not trying to say it's definitely going to make landfall here, like in Tampa, for example. I'm not going to say it's definitely going to make landfall there, because if it changes, it makes a major change to the forecast. And there's a lot of people. There's like 1 or 2 million people that are, relying on that information in Tampa, compared to the maybe 100,000 that are back up in the Big Bend, which is still a big number, but it's just a tough forecast. There's a lot of people here, and yeah, that's just the easiest way to put it. It's a hard forecast. With all that said, I still think the landfall either just south or north of Tampa is pretty realistic. I don't think it'll make landfall south of Cape Coral. I also don't think it'll make landfall up near Gainesville, but that's just my 2 cents for now. Thank you, Aaron, for becoming a member. Thank you, Kyle, for the super chat. I should probably just become a member because it's cheaper. You can. Memberships are pretty cheap on our channel. They start from $3 a month. It is the join button or the top link in the description if you want to become a member of the channel. Thank you, Kevin, for the super chat. By the way, thank you to all of our members. We are going to be, again, the membership funds are going to be going towards our power supply that we're going to be buying for hopefully staying online if we do lose power here in Florida. So appreciate all the members of the channel. Put some W's in the chat for the members. Anybody that's a member of the channel helps us be able to upgrade stuff like power supplies, so we can actually stay online, hopefully, for the hurricane. There's no way somebody's posting patents in the chat, guys. We're not going back into weather stuff. The weather manipulation stuff. We're done with that. Not talking about it anymore. Thank you, Jaden, for the 4-month membership. My son sells generators. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, like, the thing I was going to get for a power supply, it is unfortunately not going to be coming in. It wouldn't come in for like a week, so I have to get stuff at like Best Buy or something. Go with the Velocity mullet. My hair's getting pretty long. It's getting there. We could go full-blown mullet. I don't think I'm going to, but we could. The highest chance for a tornado generation, what part of the storm has that? It's usually the eastern side. I think the greatest tornado threat for Wednesday and Thursday will be in the area I outlined. It 100% does, Kyle. Appreciate the generosity. You pet us for the super chat. Do you cover rain? I do. Believe it or not, we do cover rain. Bottom right of your screen, in Cape Coral, Florida right now, it looks like it's raining. We are covering rain as we speak. You're welcome. And we have just hit 421,000 subscribers. Sheesh. Yeah, if not already, make sure to hit the red button down below and subscribe. We will be, again, providing updates, live and video updates on Twitter, or on YouTube and Twitter too. Make sure to follow me on Twitter too, at MaxVelocityWX, and on Facebook. Those links are in the description below. We'll have updates on those platforms as well. Is there an eye yet? We don't have a consolidated eye on infrared imagery. I bet by tomorrow we'll have one, though. Thank you, B. Smith, for the super chat. I did have Culver's, I know. I'm sorry. I did get Culver's. I did get cheese curds. Yesterday. I got cheese curds. Sorry, guys. We're cooked. Thank you, Heather, for becoming a member. And welcome to the Velocities. Why am I live? We're doing a live update. This is what we do before major hurricanes. We did it with Helene too. We were live 3 days before landfall. We were doing live updates every night. I think these are good. I honestly, like, I think doing live updates like this, I think people, there's over 13,000 of you guys here. Like, I think there's people that actually want to see stuff like this and get their questions hopefully answered and get the latest information. I mean, we did it with Helene. We did it with Francine, I think, like the day before. I think we did it with Debbie too. I think we did it with Debbie too, and then we did it with Beryl. So, you know, I think a lot of people do like updates like this that are live, more interactive, and kind of almost off script, because there's no script. I mean, I don't script live streams, so videos really aren't scripted either. All right, we do have our new National Hurricane Center updates. All right, so this is the latest information. Also, thank you, Unknown, for the super chat. Thank you, King Kong, also for becoming a member. Hope your school is canceled with a question mark. I guess it's a question. All right, we have our new National Hurricane Center update. It's all your fault. Thanks, appreciate that. The wording on the advisory: Milton is strengthening, likely to become a major hurricane Monday. Winds have increased. We're up to 90-mile-per-hour winds, so the intensity of Hurricane Milton has now increased. It is a Category 1 still, but 90-mile-per-hour winds. Thank you, Jill, also for becoming a member. Thank you, Sympathetic, for the $50 donation with the donation link in the description. Put some W's in the chat for Sympathetic. There's no message, but I appreciate the generosity. W's in the chat for Sympathetic. Sheesh. All right, let me get back to the update. Pressure has dropped down to 977 millibars. So this is continuing to intensify. That is a 4 millibar drop over the last few hours. The latest discussion we'll talk about in a second. Ooh, that's not good. We're gonna have to look at the cone that they have, because yikes. This is their latest cone of uncertainty. I think they've increased intensity at some point. I'm not sure when. Okay, so we're going to talk about intensity and discussion, but this is the first thing. So I'm going to have to mark every one of these icons because you don't see the wind speeds on this graphic, but that's 90 miles per hour. That's 110 miles per hour, which is Cat 2. This is 125. That is 145. So this is a Category 4 hurricane by Tuesday morning in the southern Gulf of Mexico. This is that's also 145 Tuesday night. So this could again be a Category 5 sometime Tuesday. It's very possible. They have mentioned again, this is a conservative forecast in terms of that. Wednesday morning, this starts to weaken as it approaches Florida, but is still a Category 4 hurricane. And then on immediate landfall, they are still forecasting a major hurricane. Granted, this wind speed is over land, so right before land, this will probably be around 120, 125 miles per hour if the wind shear is not really that big of a factor. So basically the guidance has increased a little bit more now in terms of intensity upon and just before landfall near Florida. Now note that this right here, that wind speed that I'm showing you here on Wednesday morning, like that's not going to be felt in Florida. This is still very far to the west. They have delayed the landfall, but not by much. It's still, they're still forecasting landfall 6 p.m. Wednesday. So I would say, again, it's good news that if this does make landfall Wednesday, you know, evening, that's way better than it making landfall, I think, overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning. But with that said, you know, the good news is that many people should be awake for that. But that's the latest on intensity in this forecast. Let's go through the discussion. Milton continues to intensify. The Hurricane Center is embedded within a circular, central, dense overcast containing very intense convection with cloud tops colder than negative 80 degrees Celsius. All right, we'll skip through that part. I'm going to skip through some of the observations right now because we kind of just talked about that. Milton is moving within the southern portion of a broad mid-level trough over the Gulf of Mexico. And, all right, I'm just going to keep skipping through some of the stuff. All right, here's what we need to talk about. So as the mid-level trough digs into the central Gulf, the hurricane should turn northeastward with some increase in forward speed during the next 2 to 3 days. So that's as it approaches Florida, it will start to speed up a little bit. And then after crossing Florida, the cyclone should turn to the east northeastward into the Atlantic Ocean, and then eventually it should become extra tropical. Milton should continue to traverse through waters of very high oceanic heat content with an environment of light vertical wind shear and moist low to mid-level air over the next 1 to 2 days. The official intensity forecast is similar to the previous forecast ones and shows Milton rapidly strengthening to a category 4 intensity within the next couple of days. Therefore, stronger upper level westerlies over the northern Gulf of Mexico should result in increasing shear. The latest ship's model output shows that the shear over Milton is going to be increasing significantly in 60 to 72 hours. Therefore, we are anticipating some weakening before this hurricane makes landfall. That's not really new news. It's just kind of clarifying that in about 3 days' time or so, we are going to start to see this weaken. With that said, this hurricane will become broader and larger, which will increase impacts for more areas in Florida in that term. All right. Let's see what I just missed here. All right. However, the system is still likely to be a large and powerful hurricane at landfall in Florida, with life-threatening hazards along portions of the coastline. So here are the key messages. Milton is forecast to become a major hurricane when it reaches the west coast of Florida Peninsula by midweek. Users are reminded to not focus on the details of the forecast, as there remains significant uncertainty in the eventual track and intensity of Milton. I've reiterated that a lot. Again, a lot of people have been saying, like, what can I expect in Tampa, for example? It's still uncertain, but you should be preparing for worst case scenario at this point. While it's too soon to specify the exact magnitude and location of the greatest impacts, there's an increasing risk of life-threatening storm surge and damaging winds for portions of the west coast of the Florida Peninsula. That begins as early as Wednesday morning, and the storm surge and hurricane watches will likely be issued early Monday. So the first watches will be issued tomorrow for Florida. Residents in the Florida Peninsula should follow any advice given by local officials and monitor updates to the forecast. Third key point, areas of heavy rainfall will impact portions of Florida Monday well ahead of Milton, with the heaviest rainfall more directly related to the system expected later on Tuesday through Wednesday night. This rainfall brings the risk of considerable flash urban and aerial floods, along with the potential for moderate to major river flooding. Tropical storm conditions are expected, with hurricane conditions possible beginning Monday across portions of the northern Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, where a tropical storm warning and hurricane watch are in effect. So that's the latest keynotes. We do not, I don't think, have a storm surge map yet, so we don't have that yet, but we do have, again, the new cone. Let's compare and contrast the two cones that we have. And this is the latest cone of uncertainty, so this is updated, I believe. Let me just double check. Yeah, all right. So this is updated. This is the new cone of uncertainty. The line in the middle, again, I would ignore, but that's basically where the higher probability of where this making landfall would be somewhere in here. But the cone of uncertainty still extends as far south as Marco Island, Florida, still as far north as Cedar Key. My forecast personally still remains the same. I think we're going to see landfall somewhere between Spring Hill and Cape Coral, Florida. I don't think it's going to be any further north or south of those points. It could still change, but that's, in my opinion, what we'll see upon landfall. Notice how this is still a category 3, inland. This is 20 miles inland from Sarasota. They still have this at category 3 intensity. So this is going to be a pretty major hurricane, again, even going inland for those just south of Tampa and near Lakeland and whatnot. Wherever the eye goes. But really the biggest change to the forecast, it's going to be a category 4, even just west of Florida. Even going into Wednesday morning. They are still thinking the landfall is going to be Wednesday afternoon or evening. So that's good news, I would say, because many more people will be awake during that time frame in case you are still staying in Florida. And again, I think that's just good news overall. Hopefully that trend continues and it stays making landfall sometime Wednesday. If it makes landfall Thursday, it has more time over the water. Shear could rip it apart more, but it's still on the edge of if that'll actually happen. So, again, if you are new to the channel, make sure to hit the red button down below and subscribe. We are going to have 2 videos a day. We'll have another one tomorrow morning. We'll have another live stream tomorrow night. So make sure that you are subscribed to the channel down below. click the bell icon as well so you're notified when we go live, and as well as when our next videos come out. All right, so make sure that you hit the red button down below and subscribe. Thank you, Kyle, for the super chat. Millibars are a measure of pressure. So, like, when we have an intensifying hurricane, it'll decrease, and then high pressure, it'll increase. Thank you, Chris, for the super chat. RV, 70 RVs in Navarre, Florida. You should be fine up there. Yeah, you should be fine. That's gonna be well out of the way of this. Thank you, Jake, for the super chat. I do cover wind speeds. Yeah, we talked about it as well earlier in the live stream. If you have any other questions that I've not answered, I highly recommend watching the first 20 minutes of this live stream or watching my video from earlier today. They both go into detail about what you can expect. And I go over all the impacts and stuff like that as well. But by tomorrow, we are expecting a major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. But again, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep posted with the latest on Hurricane Milton. Okay. What's for dinner? I have no clue. Not gonna lie. Sure what I'm doing for dinner. Once again, this is a water bottle. It is not a vape. I forgot. I have to get a new water bottle. I don't know if I have another one. Brandon Kopic says I should have cheese curds for dinner. I literally had cheese curds yesterday. Literally just had them yesterday. Where's Max on... Wait, what? What was that question? Alright, I missed a question. The chat's going too fast. Eye visible on infrared imagery? Let me go back to... I don't really think it's visible yet. Yeah. I wouldn't really say it's visible. This is the infrared. I don't see anything. Like, that would be like the one spot, but that's like not even really popping out yet. It's a stretch. Thank you, Ryan, for the $10 super chat. I mean, I can give you an estimate, but again, the forecast storm surge is really going to depend on where the eye goes. Because again, if the hurricane makes landfall south of Tampa Bay, you're going to have like maybe 3 to 6 feet of storm surge. If it makes landfall north of Tampa Bay, you could have as much as 15 to 20 feet of storm surge. So that's like the general idea right now. If you want to know like how far inland it can go to the National Hurricane Center website. Their storm surge inundation map has very good detail. They spent a ton of money making that, and it has really good detail on how far it can go inland. How's your golf game doing, Max? I haven't golfed in like a month, but I mean, we played Connor Croft in a golf match back in July, and I beat him. So I would say I'm pretty good. It might be the next Tiger Woods. Thank you, Nancy, for the super chat. I think I'll send you a new water bottle. Oh, actually, I do have a water bottle. I forgot. Somebody fan mailed me this. I got the... Let me make sure this is in the graphic here. Or the camera. I got the Max Gritty water bottle. That's upside down. The Max Gritty water bottle. I forgot I had that. Should I cancel my Disney trip for the 11th? I think you'll be alright by the 11th. What else did I miss in chat? Missed something that I wanted to read. Okay, I guess I just missed it. Thank you, Brian, for the super chat. Show the bench. I don't know what I'm going to do with this bench. I might have to get like a rack behind me and just put this on there or something. I don't know where I should put it. It's like iconic. Iconic. Can't speak. Thank you, Mike, for the super chat. I know. Dibble told me I should get a Curder burger or something from Culver's. I went there yesterday, but like the burger is expensive. It's like $2 extra over a double cheeseburger, and you only get one patty. We just talked about the new advisory, by the way, so if you want to listen in, it was like 5 minutes ago. When's the last time we saw a major hurricane on this track? Like, I don't think ever. I don't think we've ever had one like this. I was hoping the this map would load, but it's the historical data map. Unfortunately, the servers have been slow there. Yeah, it's like never happened. $1916? Yeah, I mean, if it ever happened, it would have been over 100 years ago. Like, it has not been recently. The map that I showed you guys earlier was over the last 65 years. Thank you, Brian and Caden, for the super chats. Miami's not really going to see anything other than heavy rainfall that could lead to flooding, some tropical storm force winds. I don't expect a hurricane near Miami. I would say it's a very low chance you even get hurricane force winds. Imagine a burger with a patty of deep fried mozzarella. That's pretty much what it is. It sounds good though. I want to try it. It's just expensive. Like, it's like $8 just for the burger. If you get the meal, I think it's like $13 after tax or something. I already did the 11 p.m. update. Again, if you're just tuning in, it came in early. We just talked about it 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. So go back a few minutes. We just talked about it. The updates sometimes come out early, so this one came out early. Thank you, Lena, for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocities. Huge shout out to anybody that's become a member today, or super chatted, or anything like that. Appreciate the generosity. I think with how many members and super chats we've had today, we can actually just pay off the power supply equipment that we're gonna be buying. So do appreciate the generosity to anybody that has super chatted or become a member. Max versus Connor drunk bowling would make for epic content. That would be pretty funny. Connor can actually now drink. It's kind of crazy. Thank you, Matt, for the super chat. Kurt Fund, appreciate it. Okay, and I've been over Bradenton a ton. I've already been over it a ton. I'm not going to answer a question about a scale of being screwed. I don't know how in the world I would even answer that question. It's not really a scientific question. And also, I am not guaranteeing answering any super chats, even if you send me one. There's, again, over 12,000 of you currently watching. There's been well over 100 super chats probably now. Like, there's no guarantee I can answer your question. Back in the day when we had like 100 viewers, it was very easy. Nowadays, it's pretty impossible. Thank you, Wendy, for the super chat. Thank you also, Brian, for the super chat. Please recap the 11 p.m. update. I would say there's really no big changes. The biggest thing is they are continuing to leave a higher-end Category 4 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico before landfall, and then eventual landfall as a mid-grade Cat 3 somewhere between Cape Coral and the Cedar Key area. But still more than likely going to make landfall, I'd say, between Spring Hill and Cape Coral. Could change, though. You're old enough to drink? I'm not that young. I mean, some people think I'm like 55 years old, so I don't know. I remember those days of 100 viewers. I know, it was pretty chill back then. Thank you, Soldier, for the $10 super chat. You gotta be 40? Thanks, appreciate it. It's fantastic. The math is brutal for the meteorology degree. It is. Yeah, it sucks. Trust me. It does suck. It is very hard. It's not easy. I wouldn't say it's like a reason why you shouldn't go for a meteorology degree, but it is quite a difficulty. Dibble, I don't know if you're here, but no, I wasn't looking at live chat for the first like 30 minutes. Hey, Mike, I don't know what you just said in chat, but I don't want to ever see that message again. I'm not even reading that. My guess is 29, guys. I'm in my early 20s. I'm not old. I would consider myself old, to be honest, but I'm not that old. All right, thank you, Roxana, for the super chat. Thank you, Roger, for the super chat. What's the storm surge in Cape Coral if it hits Sarasota? It would probably be in the ballpark of 10 to like 15 feet of storm surge. Advice for Port St. Lucie? I don't think there's really too much to be concerned about. Again, hurricane force winds will be a possibility if the eye crosses towards your area, but if it stays further north, I'd expect more of tropical storm force winds. No one believes you're in your early 20s? I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I got it, Pedos. I see. Brandon Kopic just says, I'm 30. It sucks. Max looks like he's 12. Wow, thanks. I mean, I guess I can take that as a compliment. I don't know. He's social for the super chat. If they're right along the beach, I mean, like, I would say yes, but if they're a little bit further inland social, I think it would be probably a good idea. More because, I mean, I think it would just be a little bit safer. Your hairline isn't receding. It's still growing still. Thanks. I'm glad. Appreciate the hairline advice. Or hairline feedback, I should call it. If you have any complaints, compliments, or complaints about hairlines, go to my website. There'll be a form for you to fill out. Imagine. It'd be so funny if that was a thing. He's wearing a wig. I don't have a wig. I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, my hair... I think my hair is great. Not gonna lie. You know, I don't know. Give Tucker a raise. How does that have anything to do with my hairline? What? How's it going, Spring Forward? I mean, for the record, my futuristic photo... Oh, the data... Oh, wait, actually, the data loaded. Will it stay on is the question. Yeah, we've, like, literally never had a hurricane that's gone towards Florida develop over here in the last, like, I don't know how many years. It's been a long time, but, like, we never had a hurricane even go towards Florida from the Western Gulf. It's really, really unusual, but... I mean, if you go back and look at my 65-year-old photo, I mean, I still have hair. So, like, I don't know, guys. My hair is just getting better. What's up with this chat? This is pretty typical for an end of a stream. Any chance it'll shift south? There's a chance it goes as far south as Cape Coral or the Everglades. It could also go as far north as just southwest of Gainesville. It's a pretty large area still. So it could go anywhere in these areas. I think you're very professional. I appreciate that. We try to stay professional on this channel, and for whatever reason, the hairline has just gone off the charts. Thank you, Andrew, for the super chat. I think Orlando will be mostly a wind threat, perhaps some flooding as well. My hair is being ripped out by my kid, so I accept it. Bald spot turning into Wumbo. Thank you, Martina, for the super chat as well. My cat is almost as old as Max. Your cat is almost 20? Excuse me? Or 21? I saw somebody post on Twitter that your hairline looks like a derecho. Great. I mean, apparently it looks like Hurricane Milton. I mean, if you guys didn't see this earlier, this is literally the cone for Hurricane Milton. Oh man, these are so dumb. Hey, CMC for the super chat. gonna have to safely scan these QR codes after from Earl. Hey, Earl, are you still in the chat? Where do these QR codes go? Do you know? On the fan mail? I don't know if they go to YouTube or something. I'm gonna have to scan them with like another phone or something so I don't get a virus if there's something on it. I don't know if Earl typed in chat. I don't think he's here anymore. RIP. Your face says you're 15, your voice says you're 40. Wow. That's kind of crazy, not gonna lie. They already released the 11 p.m. update. Again, that was 20-ish minutes ago. So again, if you want to go back in the stream and listen, we talked about it about 20 minutes ago. Thank you, Joe, for the super chat. No problem at all. Liz, I mean, I could buy an EcoFlow generator, but like they won't ship in for like a week. So, unfortunately, I'm going to be left without that. I'm going to have to get UPS supplies, but... Thank you, Ben, for the super chat. You sing us a song? I'm not singing. No. I mean, I'll sing at some point, but it's not going to be today. Thank you, Trav, for the super chat. I think Jacksonville will be mostly a wind threat, and then potential for flooding, but it depends on how far north this eye goes. Greatest tornado threat will be in this part of Florida, so mostly near and just south of I-4, in my opinion. Could even stretch up closer to, like, Daytona Beach, maybe a little bit further north. Baritone? I was actually a tenor, believe it or not. I was a tenor. I would never sing in public. I had to. I was in an a cappella group for a year back in high school. So I do actually have an idea of how to sing, believe it or not. How about a gritty? Can we do a gritty? Thank you, Lewis, for the super chat. Was that high school in the 70s? Guys, I'm not that old. I was literally born in the early 2000s. I'm not that old. How many millibars has Milton dropped since you've been live? 4, I think. 3 or 4. What's it at right now? It's 977. It dropped 4 millibars between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. Max, buddy, you should start a podcast. You got the voice for it. What am I going to talk about? Like, I'm not doing a weather podcast. Like, I'd just rather do videos. You need graphics for weather, in my opinion. Talk about some random stuff on a podcast. Talk to it. Yeah, let me do it. Yeah, let me real quickly turn into somebody that from a random interview is now all of a sudden like the number 3 on Spotify for podcasts or something. That's like literally crazy. Horror stories. I don't know of any horror stories. I'm not gonna lie. You can talk about politics and chemtrails on the podcast. Put on a tinfoil hat. Oh man, that'd be a disaster. The Vaxmalocity podcast, or the Fax Velocity podcast. You sound like Tim the Tapman. I do not sound like Tim the Tapman. Can you grow a facial hair? I really can't grow a mustache for some reason. I haven't shaved anywhere near my mustache in like 3 years. So, yeah, it has not grown at all. Will Milton weaken much after landfall? It will weaken over time. Yeah, it'll weaken, but it's still going to stay pretty intense. There'll still be a Cat 2 hurricane probably across most of Florida. That you retired for the super chat. I don't think it'll make landfall as a Cat 5. Cat 4, I would still say is possible. Cat 3 is the most likely scenario for Florida right now for landfall. I would like Max to open a local shop in Port St. Lucie. What? A local shop? Yeah, let me open up a coffee shop real quick called the Max Velocity Coffee. Let's do it. That'd actually be a pretty sick name, not gonna lie. Hey Jerry for the super chat. I'm not doing ASMR. There's no chance. A bench shop. Yeah, let me open a bench shop real quick. That'd be so funny. It'd be incredible if we did that. Thank you, VR, for the super chat. And if you have any questions on any places, make sure to go back earlier in the stream. We talked all about details and stuff. Is it going to swing back to New England? No, this is going to go out to sea. This is actually going to become an extra tropical system as it moves into the Atlantic Ocean. Well, actually, if we go to the infrared imagery on... We can do on this model. Go back to... Where's it, this model? No, we can do... Where's the simulated... There we go. If you look at it as it makes landfall and after landfall, look how the infrared imagery, it just like, it's a broad area of low pressure. It turns extra tropical. So it'll undergo a transition from being a hurricane into a post-tropical cyclone or extra-tropical cyclone as it moves into the Atlantic Ocean. Not really going to impact much of the East Coast by then. Thank you, Tessa, for becoming a member. And welcome to the Velocities. Thank you, Frog, for the super chat. You need to hire storm chasers to put benches out in front of known cameras before storms? That'd be lit. That would be actually kind of lit, not gonna lie. So it's not gonna be a big deal? No, this is gonna be a big deal. And I know we're kind of off topic right now, but this hurricane is gonna be a big deal. I'm not saying that to, you know, scare anybody. Again, I'm not saying to scare people, but what I'm saying is that this is gonna be a pretty historic hurricane, I think. Especially since we've never had a landfall, at least a landfalling major hurricane from the southwestern Gulf of Mexico ever. At least from what I know, at least in terms of, you know, history. At least in the last 6 years, I can say that. But this is very rare, so... And especially if it makes landfall in Tampa, it could be catastrophic. So, no, this is going to be a pretty big deal. Thank you, Kim, for becoming a member. Thank you, Toro, for the super chat. I remember watching you when I was in Hurricane Ian. That's actually crazy. Hurricane Ian were the days where we had, like... 500 to maybe 1,000 viewers or something like that. We were pretty small back then. Thank you, Corgi, for the super chat. A direct, like, hit with the eye in Lakeland, Florida. I mean, I'd say the odds of it going in, like, within, like, 30 miles of Lakeland, I'd say they're probably 50-60% chance, but again, it could still make landfall down here or over here, and you know, it might miss you, but you're still probably going to see significant impacts there. I would say, you know, wind is going to be the biggest concern for Lakeland. If it has a further southerly path, it would be more, I would say, more of a flooding threat. But wind is definitely a big concern right now. I don't think any airports have yet announced closures. I don't think they will probably until at least tomorrow, if not Tuesday. So once we know, we'll tell you on our next live update. So again, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. Again, we'll continue to have live updates here on Hurricane Milton, and we'll also have videos. We're gonna have video updates. We're gonna have one tomorrow morning, we'll have one tomorrow afternoon, so subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified with the latest updates. And make sure to follow me on Twitter, and make sure to follow me on Facebook. Those are both at Max Velocity WX. I'm gonna pin a link in the chat in a moment, you'll see it in a second, that'll bring you to all of my social media pages that you can follow me on those. Alright, so make sure to go check that out. The link's also in the description. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook. We also have a Discord server if you're on Discord. If you're on Discord, you can join our Discord server. The link is in the description. What's my Instagram? It's the same thing, at Max Velocity WX. When's the next National Hurricane Center update? 2 a.m. There won't be really anything that important at the 2 a.m. advisory. It's usually a pretty minimal update. 5 a.m. and 11 a.m. are the bigger advisories. Am I going to be live at 2 a.m.? No, I'll not be live at 2 a.m. Thank you, Adam, for the super chat. What's the outlook for Ohio tomorrow? Ohio's not going to see anything. It's going to be pretty chill up there. There isn't any more severe weather tomorrow, right? I know there was today. We almost went live today. I mean, for like the severe weather, we almost went live. But it just wasn't enough. Yeah, tomorrow there's no severe weather. There was a couple of tornado warnings up there, just nothing really materialized. Thank you, Jeremy, for the super chat as well. We've kind of already touched on it. I mean, it more has to do with the jet stream that we have off to the north. We're gonna have a trough that kind of dips down. That'll kind of steer it more up that direction to the north, and also a stationary frontal boundary. Those are the two main factors in terms of the direction that this will be going. So, Alicia, not from what I know, but I don't 100% know honestly about that. Then you go Illinois for the super chat. Georgetown, South Carolina. I don't know where Georgetown is, but oh, it's up here. I wouldn't say there's really gonna be anything up there. Maybe some very minimal storm surge on like, I mean, if there's anything, it'd be storm surge, and that'd be like Friday. I would say it's a very low chance of there being anything. I will not be live at 5. No, we'll have a video update though tomorrow around 7 a.m. or so Eastern time. So if you are not, if you've never been subscribed to the channel, we usually do video updates around 7 a.m. That's our typical time. And we will have another video update sometime early tomorrow afternoon, and then we'll probably be live in the evening. That's the current plan. Okay. Thank you, Val, for the super chat. I think Bradenton, again, hurricane force winds, storm surge, and that's really the main concerns. Flooding will not be really much of a concern there. It'll be more of a concern to the north. All right. Well, I think we've answered a lot of questions. We've almost been live for 3 hours. I didn't think we'd be live for 3 hours, to be honest. But we're about to cross 3 hours. We're about 2.5 minutes away from a 3-hour stream. Sheesh. Thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. I was actually going to do a video yesterday morning on the solar storm stuff, but this hurricane has said otherwise. We were originally going to do a video on that. Andy Hill, actually from Ryan Hall, mentioned that to me on Friday night. He's like, "You should do this." I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should." I didn't really think of it. And then this happened, so we end up talking more about this. So, but yeah. Thank you to anybody that's tuned in tonight. Again, if you are new to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon down below so you're notified when we go live tomorrow and with our latest videos. Also, like the stream. Click the bell icon. Thank you to anybody that's super chatted tonight. Thank you to anybody that has become a member. I really do appreciate your generosity and your support. Again, follow us on Twitter and Facebook at MaxVelocityWX. Those links are pinned at the top of the chat. And they're also in the description below. So if you are new to the channel, follow us on those platforms, Twitter and Facebook at MaxVelocityWX. If you want to support the page above and beyond, you can become a member. It is the top link in the description below. If you want to send me any fan mail to open up on stream, there's also a link in the description to my mailing address. If you'd like to mail anything there, feel free. Again, this whole keychain and bench thing was pretty cool. If you have any creative ideas or if you want to send me snacks, I don't really know, but whatever, then feel free to, check that out. And also join our Discord server. If you're on Discord, you can join it. There's also a link to that in the description below. And also, there have been cameo requests, like the personalized videos, if you know what those are, cameos. I will try to get those done this week, no guarantees. So if you have requested a cameo, there's like 4 right now that I have. I will try to get to them as soon as possible. But if I don't get them done, then we'll try to redo them next week or something. But we'll see what happens. This hurricane's going to keep us busy. Again, we're going to have 2 videos a day. We're going to have a live stream every day. And then whenever this makes landfall, which right now looks like Wednesday night, we'll have landfall coverage. We will have 1 video Wednesday and then 2 live streams, probably like what we did with Helene. So that's the current thinking. All right. So again, if you are new to the channel, subscribe, click the bell icon down below so you're notified with the latest videos and live streams. We will be back again tomorrow for a live update at some point. I don't know if it's going to be the same exact time, but it will probably be during the afternoon or evening. And yeah, we have 15 seconds left. Any final words until we hit 3 hours? I'm just waiting to hit 3 hours here. I like even numbers, so we're going to make it even. The next advisory is at 2 a.m. That's the next advisory. Thank you, by the way, to the mods as well. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for the mods for keeping the chat healthy. And that's it. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Have a great, safe rest of your night. We'll see you guys all again in the next video, which will be tomorrow morning. Next live stream tomorrow at some point. I don't know.